Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, once again, welcome to the July 20th council meeting. And we start with roll call.
Mrs. Lingo.
Here.
Mrs. Moody.
Here.
Mr. Parsons.
Here.
Mr. Reddy.
Here.
Mr. Joseph.
Here.
Mr. George.
Here.
And she.
Here.
Okay, everyone is present and accounted for. The minutes. You have the minutes before you of the June 15th, 2021 meeting. And also on the same page as the public hearing that before we opened up our council meeting. Anybody have any corrections or things that they've seen, misspellings, etc.?
Look at all of us looking at you.
I read it, but I didn't read it like letter by letter.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I didn't see anything.
I move we approve the minutes as stated.
I have a motion from Ms. Sheets to approve the minutes as printed.
Second.
Have a second. Mr. Parsons. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Just a good meeting last meeting.
Correspondence. I don't have any special correspondence. You had a few things in your packet to read over. We'll discuss them throughout the meeting. We have a guest tonight. Ms. Karen Arnett is here to give us a brief report on the Tree Commission. Oh, she's got a big book. Look out.
Hi. Yes, Karen Arnett, 7373 Hickman for the record. Well, there's something to celebrate, which is that our tree commission is 10 years old this year. 10 years ago, you, the city council, passed an ordinance establishing an urban tree commission. And we basically we're all volunteers. We're appointed by the mayor. There's, according to the ordinance, 5 of us, and you know how it is on city council. If you don't find replacements, you know, some of us have been there since the beginning. We're not cycling off and, being swapped out with new people, but we're always looking for new people who are interested in helping Mount Healthy be more green and tree-filled. So I just want to kind of do a quick reminder of our purpose and objectives. And so, the city expects the commission to sort of be an a body that will share information and help educate regarding the planting and maintenance of trees within the city limits, and to advise the city on any issues relating to trees. When we started, we were very conscientious, and so we created a job description for ourselves and drafted a mission statement. And so our mission is primarily to aid in advocating for and facilitating increased tree plantings in the city of Mount Healthy, educating the public on the need for and the benefits of increased tree canopy, and to advise the city government on tree-related issues. We don't have anybody on staff currently who's dedicated to urban forestry, so we kind of fill in that role. And I think we've been able to be helpful over the years when there's been a question about a tree that maybe appears to be hazardous, or Public Works or the city manager has called us in to give advice from time to time. Our members over the years, I just want to recognize people who have been tree commission members and those who are currently. So members who are no longer on the commission: Bob Curley, Julie Turner, Tom Davis, Michelle Robinson, Casey McCann, and we have here all of our current tree commission members and one prospective new commissioners. So I want you guys to stand up so you can be recognized. Judy Harmon has been on the commission for quite a long time, maybe since the beginning. Yes. And Sandy Young, longtime tree commission member, and Dwight Weiss, who has offered to be a commissioner, and he's really interested. He's taken the initiative to sign up for the Tree Commission Academy's freshman course in September. He's even decided to take a day off work so he could attend that, or 2 days, nice. Whatever it is. So we ask you if you would be willing to appoint him at some appropriate time.
Absolutely.
And we've also had quite a bit of skill and experience among the members of the Tree Commission. Judy's a professional horticulturist. How many years have you been doing that work? 40 years, 35? She's got a lot of knowledge about trees and plants. Casey McCann, who was on the commission for a year or so, has moved from Mount Healthy, was the horticultural manager of Smale Park. Tom Davis still lives in the neighborhood, although he's not on the commission, but he is a local resource. He's a certified municipal arborist who worked for the city of Covington and the village of Marymount. So we try to learn, and through things like Tree Commission Academy, and then there's ongoing all kinds of resources available to us, tree commissioners around the state for learning. And then we also, I'm proud that we have people in the neighborhood who have skills and knowledge. We want to do the best we can. I want to just go over some of our accomplishments. We've planted 150 street and park trees and provided a handful of trees for people's private properties. I kind of see front yards as being part of the urban forest, and it benefits because people see the trees as they're going down the street. So we do provide trees for people's yards as well. There's a Google map, which if you go to the Facebook page for the Mount Healthy Urban Tree Commission, I just put a link to that map where you can see where all of the trees are located. So I kind of keep track using the Google map. We've had a really high survival rate for the trees we've planted because we take good care when we plant, use proper methods, and then we also follow up with watering for the whole of the next growing season and mulching and doing follow-up pruning. The strip between the sidewalk and the street, as you know, it's a public right-of-way, but cities take different approaches as to whom they assign responsibility for that. So our city likes to say that the residents are responsible for anything in that right-of-way. But because people generally don't know how to prune trees properly, I like to go back and do pruning. And this last week I actually did quite a bit of pruning on Maple Street, where you ought to take a drive down there now because we planted trees in, I think it was about 5 years ago, and it's looking really nice. It kind of knits the street together, it makes it feel cohesive. And I had a neighbor come out and talk to me and say how much she appreciated the trees. I've also, if you're driving around the neighborhood and you happen to notice the street trees have something on their trunk like a black corrugated thing or chicken wire, it's because a string trimmer can kill or permanently damage a tree just within seconds, literally. All it takes is for the string trimmer to hit the bark, and on a young tree that will cause enough damage to either stunt it or kill the tree. So I like to keep those things on, until the tree gets old enough that the bark gets thick. And I'm also, I can proudly say that we've done all of this on a real shoestring budget. I mean, there is a line item in the city budget for a tree program. But we try to keep our costs down, so the trees that we buy are smallish trees, usually like 5 or 7 gallon pots, and they can cost $25 to $40, which is, really a good deal. But the positive side of that is that when you plant smaller trees, they may not look impressive at first, but they have less transplant shock, and so they actually end up doing better in the long run. And I'm seeing on Harrison, we planted some trees in 2012 or something, and they're really looking nice now, and they've kind of hit their stride. It took a few years for them not to look puny, but after a while, they are looking really good. So other things we've done, we've organized Arbor Day events early on. That was kind of part of the city council ordinance that said we would have annual Arbor Day events, and we were very enthusiastic for several years initially. We had our first Arbor Day event in 2011 at the Pocket Park on Hastings. That's where an Eagle Scout kind of created that park. And so we planted trees, and we had music and educational offerings, and it was a lot of fun. Our second Arbor Day event was in 2012, and we had other interesting and, sort of public engagement activities, and we planted 3 trees in the City Park playground, and you can see those trees are really looking nice now. And I think Judy was responsible for providing those trees. They cost kind of like virtually pennies, but they're doing great. And then we hosted an Arbor Day event in 2014. I don't remember what we did in 2013, but in 2014 we had an Arbor Day event at South Elementary School. We were real interested in partnering with the schools initially, and we worked with the students from the elementary school student government, if you can believe there is such a thing. I mean, I'd never thought there would be a student government at an elementary school. But in any case, they worked with us, and we had some UC faculty volunteers, and we had an educational event, and we planted those 3 cypress trees, which are, doing fairly well. And I'm hoping we can get some signage up so the students can realize they were planted for an Arbor Day event. We got a small grant from the Bicentennial Committee in 2017 and planted about a half a dozen trees in the front yard of the school administration building. The idea was kind of that those trees would eventually replace the big ones whenever they end up coming down. We also partnered with the Historical Society, I'm not sure which year, to help them select, and then we planted a memorial tree in front of the museum. We also planted a tree for a family that wanted to memorialize someone who had been killed, and that tree is in the park. It's an oak tree kind of across the sidewalk from where the cannon and the Veterans Park is. So your pictures we'll just show some random pictures of our annual plantings. They're always super uplifting because we get volunteers from the high school, from UC, students and faculty, and we get neighbors to help. It makes people feel really good about doing something that's lasting. I see that as not only planting trees, but kind of community building. And people get some new skills for tree care. So I want to just say our first strategy when we did start with our tree offerings and tree plantings was we were kind of given a requirement by the city that we could only plant trees where people affirmatively said they wanted trees, because the thought was, well, if they want them, then they'll take care of them, or they won't carelessly damage them. But it turned out we only had a few people responding to our letters that we would send out saying, we have trees for your street. And so it ended up being very piecemeal for the first couple of years. I learned a really interesting thing during the Tree Commission Academy training, and that was that whatever you send out as a query, you'll get a 15% response. It doesn't matter if you ask people to opt out or opt in. So we switched to an opt out, and now we pick a street that we want to line, and we send letters to everyone on the street and say, we've selected your street for a tree planting. If you don't want a tree, please contact us. We have the exact same response from people who are opting out as we did from opting in. So that means we get to plant a lot more trees. It looks nicer. It's not just this piecemeal random tree planting. So that's a good thing for you all to know also when you want to get civic engagement. We also have done a tree risk inventory, and that's a really helpful tool in order to identify trees that could be weak, structurally weak, and they could blow down during a storm. And that helps communities avoid a lot of storm damage. It really helps minimize storm damage proactively. And I didn't mention, but we have a mentor, Wendy Van Buren. She is wonderful. She works through the Ohio Division of Natural Resources as our regional urban forester. And even with government spending being cut here and there, they have continued to fund this wonderful urban forestry program around the state. And so those folks can be mentors for city tree programs. They can, they offer conferences every year to bring people together to share ideas, and they offer that Tree Commission Academy. So I think we're due for another tree risk inventory. Remember, driving around with Wendy for that. We also, for a while, we offered certificates to neighbors for notable trees. It was kind of an adjunct to the Arbor Day event, so we went around the neighborhood and picked out, a handful of trees that were really impressive in people's yards, and then made a nice certificate with Ray's help. And then we got the mayor to sign the certificates and mailed them out. And it was a nice thing as a kind of generating of goodwill for our neighborhood. Other accomplishments, we received a $900 mini grant from the organization Taking Root in 2017 for tree planting, and that's what it funded half of the cost for the trees on Perry Street. And they really like us. They like our tree commission and our tree program, so they have asked us to be a community partner for their tree distribution event this fall that's funded by a Duke Foundation grant. So both North College Hill and Mount Healthy residents will be able to get a tree for their yard. I think they're asking a nominal fee just to ensure commitment and follow through. Last year, as we were seeing Duke utility pruning in the neighborhood, I contacted the auditor. There's a company that audits the utility pruning contractors to make sure they're doing things right and according to standards. And I spent a couple hours with him, and we looked at different trees and talked about the methods for utility pruning. And it's really a good idea to have some kind of city connection with these auditors, because it kind of brings about a better product, a better result. Like, sometimes people feel horrified that their trees have been hacked by the people who are clearing the utility lines, but the more city liaison you can do with them, the more responsive they are. So I hope to do that again in the future. And also, I encourage you all to just know that we have a Facebook page, the Mount Healthy Urban Tree Commission, and we highlight trees in the neighborhood, share information about how people can be good tree stewards to their trees, and also just shine a light on the work of the Tree Commission. Let's see. And getting close to the end here. I feel really proud, though, going through that list. I think we've done a lot for a small volunteer group. And we had met religiously and monthly for the first 4 years, and we kept minutes, and we made our agenda, and we made an annual report. But I think we kind of mellowed into, let's just, focus on our role and not be so organization-driven or, formal in our approach. So we've just been kind of more easygoing, and we keep our tree plantings going and the other programs. Be nice if we were able to attract any new interested folks who would like to resume doing an Arbor Day event or work with the schools, to do some kind of tree-related educational stuff. So it's all kind of, I guess you could say it's open to possibilities depending on, who joins us. We'll see what Dwight brings to the commission. Oh, and I want to say that our focus for the first 10 years was really a lot about planting trees and keeping them healthy. And it kind of seems like it's really important for you all to also know what we're doing and to maybe generate more of an appreciation for the importance of trees in cities. So I've talked with Bill Coker through Denise, who's our liaison. Yay, Denise. And so I'll just be doing a very brief PSA quarterly to you about some aspect of urban forestry. Things are really changing in our world as cities heat up. I was really interested to learn the other day that trees are the primary tool for mitigating the urban heat island effect. So our cities are getting hotter and hotter, and trees are super important. They're not just seen as decoration anymore or, a nice thing to have. Cities are investing a lot of money in them as green infrastructure and taking that seriously. So the more we can move in that direction to really value our trees, in a number of different ways, the better. that kind of wraps up my presentation. Thanks for making our commission possible through your ordinance. And if you have any questions or feedback for any of us, be open to that.
Does anybody have any questions for Karen?
I just want to thank you for a great job you do.
Karen?
All current and former members, thank you.
Yes.
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 I do have one question. It may be a silly,
Yes.
stupid question, I don't know. I've seen other cities who have their tree commissions and so forth, and they all seem to shoot for this designation from the state that you're a tree city. Okay, how does that, what is going on?
We cannot
Is
be
that
a tree.
process, or?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
A prerequisite, there's several prerequisites to be a tree city. You have to have a tree board, which we have. The city has to actually invest a certain amount of money per capita. It's like $2 per capita per year, which may be more than we're investing right now. We maybe don't have that money, I don't know. But we also would have to have a tree protection ordinance. And that's something that, we talked about it back when the tree commission was established. And a tree protection ordinance really involves more enforcement, so it would draw a staff person in some way to make sure that whatever's in the ordinance, like you can't cut a tree down or you'll get a fine if you do it without a permit, or you're not allowed to cut the street trees down, or, there's a bunch of specifics in tree protection ordinances. And so we do not have that. And I guess it would just be a matter of when the city feels that's something they can actually support with enforcement or, would value.
Okay, thank you. That's kind of the information I wanted.
Yeah, okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if somebody has a question about their tree on their own property, are you all folks to call and say, could you come and look at it?
Yeah. Yes, we do respond. And I think that, oops. Ray Rissell usually sort of directs any calls to me, and, Judy is a great person to respond as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I know that Bob Parsons asked a question. You asked about your aging trees, and at one of our first open houses, and I felt so bad because I think Wendy was on a roll with giving this long talk, and she didn't really answer your question. So if you still have the question, we could take a look at your tree.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
I
Karen.
bought a couple trees from one of the things you were involved in, and they're doing
Nice.
very well.
Yay.
A couple
Great.
of oak trees.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on. We're going to move to public input. Anybody here who wishes to address council, this is the time to do it. Yes.
She needs to come up.
She might have difficulty. She's in a wheelchair.
I currently live at Cary Crossing.
Uh,
Obviously, you can see
Where do you live? I'm sorry.
Cary Crossing.
Okay.
And as you can see, I'm in a wheelchair. I like to get out throughout the neighborhood a lot, and right now it's a little difficult because I've noticed that there's a lot of issues with the sidewalks, like uneven, broken sidewalks, and some areas don't have the ramp to get up on the curbs. So I just kind of wanted to address that, and then I don't know if there's anything the city could do, but some of the new crosswalks, specifically at Perry and right outside across from Seaward, people do not stop even when you push the button and the lights are flashing. So that's kind of what I wanted to say.
I appreciate your input, and the mayor.
I did speak to Ms. Samples at the farmer's market, so thank you. She reached out to me first and emailed me, or Facebook message, something, you reached out. And it was really helpful. So I told her about C-Click Fix, and she actually found an issue with C-Click Fix. So I'm working on that now. Apparently, when it's a sidewalk issue, it gets bounced back and forth between whether it's actually a public maintenance issue or private property issue. So she brought that to our attention, which is very helpful. But this is something we've been talking about for quite a while, about possibly doing a sidewalk assessment. So I do want you to keep that in the back of your minds as we're moving forward. I've been hesitant to do it until we get our alleys and parking lots fixed. I just feel a little bit hypocritical if we force people to fix their sidewalks when the city isn't maintaining its own. So personally, that's where I've been, but with the gas tax and then COVID. Now with gas tax, if it's projecting like we're hoping, we would like to get back on track and do that. So there may be an opportunity within the next year or two that if we are able to work on our own, alleys and streets, or if council believes that we should push ahead and do it, despite our alleys and parking lots being fixed, I'm willing to entertain that as well. So I just want you to keep that in the back of your mind. I'm going to be talking to Bill about it. It's an issue that's been on my mind. I know Sarah Danks has reached out to us. I know Councilmember Sheets. A lot of people have reached out talking about the poor condition of sidewalks. And I told Ms. Samples to keep letting us know, keep emailing me, keep pestering me, keep doing see-click fix, because we can have, first of all, we can get those fixed. We can also have a record of all the problems as we move forward. The streetlight issue has come up at every meeting since they've been changed. It's obviously a concern by a lot of people. I've had some productive conversations. The streetlights aren't going to come back, but I have had some people reach out to me with some pretty creative ideas that I'm taking into consideration. I'm going to speak to the city manager about. If you have some ideas on what we can do short of the streetlights coming back, let me know, because we are looking for suggestions right now. I don't want to go too much further and say what the suggestions I've had yet are, but we are entertaining those right now. And it is an issue. The sidewalks are a major issue. I think everyone recognizes that. We know the streets are an issue. I think we're working on those. We have a plan for the streets. I do think sidewalks are close to figure out how we're going to do that. But keep pestering us. And thank you. I'll get back with you. Was that today you emailed me about C-Click Fix? So I did forward that today, and I'll get back with you on how we can fix that moving forward. Thank you. And I'm really happy that we have an engaged resident from Cary Crossing.
Absolutely.
So some of us are on council when the city used to own that property, just a bit of the history. There was a school there. The city purchased the property when Joe was mayor, and purchased the property, sat on it for a little while for development, and then developed it with CMHA
Yep.
for Cary Crossing, and then later sold the front to the Healthcare Connection.
Yep.
And it is great to see one of our residents active around the community at the farmers market coming up to council. So thank you. I really appreciate your input.
Okay, Mr. Redding.
So just, I talked to Bridget Terry, and to follow the same subject matter here. I don't know if she's here tonight or not. Bridget? Nope. Okay. So Bridget called me about a similar issue with the crossings at Warner and Compton. She lives in the middle house on Compton, two houses east of the intersection at Compton and Warner, and her kids were crossing and hit the button, lights flashing, and people actually ran through. So she was very, very concerned about that because her kids use that intersection a lot. They were actually going to football practice. So anyway, yeah, I have some thoughts about some maybe additional, I don't know, what I guess additional security or I guess ways to make those intersections more obvious. One of them is, I did notice that we don't have buttons on both sides of the street. That's one. And then two is maybe a four-way flashing light, not a stop light, but just a four-way flashing light at some of those intersections. So those were something real quick that I thought about over the weekend after talking with Bridget Terry. So anyway, just to piggyback onto what Jamie was talking about. So.
Anybody else have any comments on that?
I think we definitely need signage near those lights that say pedestrians have the right-of-way. And then hopefully some police presence and
making sure that that's followed.
Yeah, in some states, they actually have a sign in the middle that says it's against state law to not stop, or city law, and they post the fine if you don't. And I don't know whether that'll help, but I know down where I have a relative that lives, I mean, they have, and people stop. And the fine is pretty stiff, so if you get caught, I think it's a $500 fine.
I mean, I'm concerned. I was walking here tonight. I was in the crosswalk. They saw me. And they just went, they did stop because I was in the middle. They knew they'd hit me, but they swore at me the whole time as, and it was like,
Well, we have those no turns, and people mostly turn left when you're not supposed to turn left, too. I mean, they do all the time.
I
So,
mean, I'm concerned about those sections. I'm really concerned about all the intersections, and walking, and I'm not going to give it up, I want to walk, and I'm going to walk across the street, so. But I do see with our police report, there's many more traffic violations that are given. And so I hope that, I want to say that very loudly. There's, they're giving tickets. So you want to break the law, pay the price.
Anybody else? Ms. Campbell, thank you for coming up.
samples.
I'm sorry. It's a problem, not just for you, but for all of us. And we fight and deal with this all the time. And we got intersections that the people are complaining about all over town. And the biggest problem is people don't stop for stop signs. They, just, so. Anybody else have anything to address council with? Yes. Come up to the podium, please. Give us your name and address.
Good evening. I'm Jim Lowenberg, 1418 St. Clair Avenue. And just a side note on the issue of streets, there are some creative things that could be done. And I know in the Healthy Hilltops report and process that John Young from Urban Fast Forward worked on, there was conversation about street calming, bump outs and things that can sort of narrow the street towards the intersection, and things like that would force people to slow down. So whether it be John or someone else, there are plenty of people out there who can make recommendations on street calming. Enforcement may be needed, but hopefully there are other things that we can rely on as well. That's not why I came up, though. I came up primarily to talk about zoning, and I was part of the zoning rewrite committee. Overall, I feel very positive about the end result. We worked on it for quite some time. At our last meeting, there was a list of things that were presented to us to be discussed in the future. It wasn't quite defined what that meant. And one of those things, I believe, and I don't have the list in front of me, was dealing with front yard gardens. Another was dealing with Airbnb garages. I mean, there were a number of things. We never had a chance to really fully discuss those things, but they have somehow made their way into the zoning code prior to the committee discussing them. And I understand that some of the city staff had input on that. Also in the Healthy Hilltop report back a couple years ago, there was conversation about how Mount Healthy is unique in really encouraging people to garden, and we should take advantage of that, encouraging people to move into our neighborhood who want to garden. So I would suggest that you should hold off on the portion of the zoning code that restricts front yard gardens to just 6 feet, because I really think it's a unique thing that we can provide in Mount Healthy, and it really does not need to be restricted as outlined. So if it's possible to pass the zoning code but keep a few things out, I think it makes sense to do. Overall, I think it's a great product, but some things did not get fully vetted by the committee. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Lowenbrow, thank you. Lowenberg. Okay, anybody else like to address council? Yes, young lady here with the yellow glasses. We need your name and address, please.
Hi. I'm Brandy Davis, 7821 Elizabeth Street. I forget what this young woman's name was, but for the lights, when you guys first took the lights away on the intersections, it was a 4-way stop sign. You guys took away 2 stop signs and left the other 2 to go like towards the post office, but you took away the others on Compton. Well, if you're leaving the post office, you can't see the other cars because they're parked on the street. So it's just hard to even cross over Compton, either on Seward or if you're on Perry. So to me, the obvious choice would be just to put the 2 other stop signs back, because you had them up and it was easier than what is there now. When I'm walking my dog, you can't cross right there. It's hard. My kids, they like to ride their bike to the park by the, I don't know, what that trail around next to the highway. We like to ride our bikes there, and you know, sometimes
Dangerous getting there, isn't it?
yeah, and you know, you can't go on Perry because people can't see to even stop. Another issue that I wanted to bring up was the zoning for the gardens. With the pandemic, you know, I started growing my own food, and I spent a lot of money to get my garden started. It's fun. It's a fun way for my kids to, you know, learn about science, and I planned on extending my garden to my front yard, and then I'm on the Facebook group for My Healthy Gardeners, and Ms. Arnett said that, well, the zoning might be changing, and I may not be able to do that. I'm already in a lot of money already, and I just think it just makes the city better when you see people getting out, being active, you know, having pride in their yard, you know, and what they're doing, and then to have the city tell you that, no, you can't do that. What are we supposed to do now? Like, what am I going to do with all the stuff that I already bought if you guys, you know, pass this zoning law? But that's all I got.
Okay, so getting back to Perry and Compton, do you think that should be a 4-way stop sign then?
Well, I could have sworn when you guys took the stoplights out, you guys had 4 sets of stop signs, didn't you?
No.
I'm pretty.
If there was, it was only temporary for the folks that were working there.
Okay,
for
well
their
then that must
safety.
have been when I saw it, but to take them down, it just did not make any sense to me whatsoever.
Well, a little history on that is the state funding, they did a study on the intersections and did traffic counts, and they would only fund intersections that had a certain amount of traffic. And Perry did not reach that. And that's
Okay.
where Warner Avenue did not reach it, or Seward Avenue did not reach it, so those are gone. To fund those streetlights without state funding to help pay for it would have been very
Just
costly.
to put up another set of stop signs, so
Well,
each
that's an
side
option.
has to stop.
Yeah, you're not the
But-
first to complain about it, that's for sure.
Yeah, like I like My Healthy primarily because you don't have to drive to get where you want to go. You can just walk everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just a little bit harder when you're worried about getting hit
Yes.
by a car.
Absolutely.
This is very new with the push button lights and stuff, and I think we have to educate people to understand what that's for. Hopefully, as we get some experience with it, the drivers will learn to stop, and with whatever we can do, signage or flashing lights, some other, red flashing lights or something. We need to do some more to get people to understand what the drivers are supposed to do.
Yeah, it was kind of like a shock to see him go, you know.
Right. They've been there my entire life,
Yeah.
But
Still looks weird.
Mary, have any comments? I
It's
don't
an
mean to put
ongoing
you on the
issue.
spot.
Like you said, this is new. I appreciate any creative recommendations you have, any recommendations you have. We're not done with this. I mean, like you said, they recommended we take down even one more.
Right.
And we've kept one up.
Yeah, right.
Because we recognize that we don't want Compton just to be a raceway either. I walk it every day as well. It's an issue. We need
Yes,
to-
I think it's a serious issue that we need to
Yep.
somehow come up with some answers.
Agreed.
maybe a four-way stop there is a partial answer, I don't know. Getting people to stop for any stop signs, that's
I
tough.
added that to my suggestions that I'm getting. So I've had a lot of good suggestions. So I'll add four-way stop to it.
And she also made mention of not being able to see traffic coming because of parked cars, and that's been brought up before.
Yeah, and one of the other recommendations,
Couple streets.
it doesn't quite address the visibility, but it does address, it does seem that a lot of the cars on Perry right now, since it used to be, you know, red lights on both sides, it does seem a lot of people that are stopping on Perry are assuming that the people on Compton are gonna have to stop. Because I've seen some people on Perry, I've seen many people on Perry, that they stop at the stop sign, and then they start to pull out when a car's coming straight at them. So one of the things that I'm taking into consideration is, you know, you can put signs underneath the stop sign that cross traffic does not stop. There is no notification of that right now.
Right.
So that assumption can be eliminated, but we don't, I didn't want to send that to Public Works and say, hey, let's put that signage up if we're going to consider putting stop signs on the other ones either. I didn't want to jump too quickly
Right.
at this. So something has to be done.
Yes.
I appreciate, you're the first one to say have stop signs on Compton, so I'll add that to
Yeah,
the list of recommendations.
I thought they were there, then they weren't there, but I didn't realize it was because you guys just took it down.
Unless they had them
The
up while
lights
they were
down.
doing the construction, taking it down, that might have been
I think so.
the case.
I think it was.
They were
Um,
construction stuff.
And that wouldn't have been like the city doing it, it would have been the construction.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that might be true, so that might have been going on for a period of time. It's causing issues, it's causing a lot of issues. I don't know of any accidents occurring yet, but
there's
that
been
doesn't mean it's not an issue.
Yeah.
We
Well, we don't wanna wait
wanna
till some-
until that
no.
happens, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Ms. Davis, thank you for
I
coming up.
appreciate it.
Anything else?
No, I just, with the whole zoning for,
The
the
gardens.
front yard gardens, flowers are great, but, if I'm going to plant something, I want it to be functional, like for me.
I know, it's hard to eat a marigold, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to address council? Come on up, sir.
Ma'am.
Ma'am. Oh, more than one person had their hand up.
Sandy, right? I'm Sandy Young from 1940 Madison in Mount Healthy. And I was going to wait and ask for a four-way stop on that same, on Compton and Perry, because I've heard a lot of complaints from people, but I was thinking, why don't you call the city, either the Click Fix or somebody that's in charge of that. But people are having, I go to church on Compton and Perry, and people are, was a big talk for a couple of weeks because they were having trouble, and some people are driving all the way around 2 other blocks so they don't have to use that corner. And coming here tonight, I had to stop short for a guy that made a left turn in front of me when I had the right of way. And my first thought was, they need a four-way stop here, because people understand a four-way stop and how that works. But I don't think people understand who has the right of way when there's no stop sign, when you got only 2 stop signs or something. But the only example I can think of is like Mill and there's a four-way stop up there by the Culping place. That works like clockwork all the time. But coming down Perry, because of the people, I was waiting for the traffic to clear on Compton so I could come ahead straight. And this person that came to that, coming the other way on Perry, was after me, so and he didn't have a turn signal on either. But, like I said, if I hadn't stopped short, we would have had a crash. And so it is something that I'm thinking a four-way stop would be good, too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You have, next. Aye.
My name is Jesse Cupp. I live on 7826 Joseph Street. Apologize, this might be a little more formal than it needs to be. I have a little statement. This is just regarding the zoning changes in gardens, and I'm also the house on Joseph Street that has chickens, so this would impact me as well. So, the reason I've come here tonight is in response to the new measures proposed to regulate the distance between the chicken coops and gardens from property lines. These new regulations would negatively impact me, but I haven't come to express my grievances, instead to suggest an alternative way of viewing how we use our land. If I'm not filling my land with coops and gardens, the implications is that I instead plant grass. This seems like a reasonable suggestion because grass is aesthetically pleasing. It's hardy, it's easy, and it provides a sense of uniformity with one's neighbors. However, there's a lot that grass can't do. It can't feed you. It can't sustain pollinating insects like bees, and most importantly, it can't cut itself. So I understand that these regulations are a response to what can look like a lack of pride and ownership in one's property. A sea of green carpet is easier to look at than rows of growing vegetables or the often messy state of a chicken run. But I'm prouder of my sunflowers, my pumpkins, goldenrod, strawberries, and of course the eggs than I ever would be of the world's finest lawn. Like anyone, I have seen other lawns become overgrown and was sorry to see that the land was in such disarray. But at the end of the day, believe it or not, I'm a conservative person, which may come as a surprise considering that I look like I just came from Woodstock. But regardless of how I look, I can't help but be kind of philosophically opposed when any government, be it federal, state, local, or otherwise, attempts to kind of overregulate how landowners use or don't use their land. So, though I may not look like the look of my neighbor's yard, that's his yard. It's his business, and my name's not on the deed. But I believe that land is one of the few noble purchases a person can make in the 21st century. I have very little control over what happens in the world, but I can make 1/4 of an acre a better place. I believe that attempting to limit a land's productivity robs not just myself, but my neighbors from doing the same, especially since those people have already complied with current city ordinances. They purchased a bunch of plants or built a chicken run. You have to take it all down and rebuild it. But in any case, just I borrowed this from my refrigerator. This is from Violet. She's a little girl, lives behind us. She and her brother, I think they're homeschooled. They come over and play with chickens sometimes. And we had a group of boys just the other day come by. They all held a chicken for the first time. And I think that's a worthwhile thing. I think everybody should hold a chicken. Any of you want to come, Joseph, hold a chicken? I'll be around. Just ask. I'll let you hold Crystal. But in any case, I've met a lot of my neighbors through conversation about the chickens and through gifting them eggs. And also, though I don't have a big yard, I've provided a lot of meals with the food I've grown in the gardens. And I just think it'd be a shame to have this replaced with grass, which looks nice, but doesn't do much for you. So before passing this, I would ask you to reconsider what the land of Mount Healthy can do for its citizens rather than just, sort of visual, pleasing, general property consciousness. But thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
And I was thinking more of the Bible look.
We'll go with that. Bible's good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Karen.
We have an amazing orator in our midst. So Karen Arnett, 7373 Hickman. There's just a few things I wanted to bring up as part of public input. One is I wanted to thank the city for actually engaging a certified arborist. They're working with Gregory Forrest Lester. As you all probably know, you've probably seen the report. And that's a really highly respected, highly credible company. They do a lot of work for municipalities that are dealing with construction. And in particular, I think they offered Kevin Lester offered some really great suggestions, which I hope in the process of the city working with the arborist that these will in some way get implemented, and that the contractor will be held to them. Just reading from his summary, recommendations to limit the stress caused by the roadwork include using a stump grinder to obtain a clean cut on the roots, liquid root fertilizing of the affected trees, and keeping equipment off of undisturbed root areas to prevent soil compaction. So these are really, 3 really great steps that aren't too hard to implement. So I'm glad the city, took that first step to including an arborist in the process. My next questions are regarding the zoning code, and I asked Bill Coker if I had questions, how I could get them answered, and he said to come to the meeting. So I'm hoping that John will actually be able to answer questions. One is regarding, there's some wonderful lighting restrictions for now applying to churches as they have in the past applied to commercial establishments, so that their lighting is not, it has to be set up in such a way that it doesn't spill over into adjacent residential zoned properties and affect those property owners. I guess my question is that something that's only applying to new churches that are built or new lighting, and are the current uses of lighting grandfathered?
So I think it really comes down to how your zoning staff will interpret that. But you can interpret conformity and non-conformity as in, like, if something is turned off and then turned back on again, that could be it. Or if a light bulb changed, it is greater intensity than what was before, or less intense.
Mm-hmm.
So that really comes down to how the staff will look at that.
Okay, so it's not just about the installation. It could actually apply and be brought to bear on existing lighting. Thank you. And I would like to echo the concern about the front yard vegetable gardens. Front yard gardening and edible landscaping is another thing. They're really up and coming progressive ideas, and I feel like if we want Mount Healthy to be a place that attracts younger people, more progressive folks in the future, we need to give people the opportunity to do things that are kind of exciting and popular and important. I feel like vegetable gardens in front yards is a useful, important thing. Edible landscaping is useful and important, and to limit it to just 6 feet. The first 6 feet of the front yard setback is very, very restrictive. It basically means a landscaping bed right around your house. And I guess with the current setback requirements, a lot of the houses in the older parts of Mount Healthy are set close to the sidewalk. And I guess if any of those are torn down and a new house is built, they would have to be set back 30 feet, which minimizes their backyard, which means that people won't have the same opportunities to garden in their backyards in the future. It also takes away a little bit of the historical look of the neighborhood to have everything set back. Then I have one more question or concern, and that is that in the paragraph about fences and walls, which is 15509, it refers to fences, walls, and foliage adjacent to any public sidewalk shall be set back at least 1 foot from, and then it goes on. So foliage setback. I know the intent was stated at the last meeting to prevent hedges from going right up to the sidewalk, and yet couldn't you just say privacy hedges, because technically grass is foliage, and so it's not all that, to leave something that's so unclear, it would be easy just to replace foliage with something that's more clearly referring to a privacy hedge, which is, I think, what was meant by that paragraph. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, Karen, thank you very much. Anyone else like to address council? Okay. Wonderful. Moving on to committee reports. Business Partnership, the Alliance, and Beautification. Ms. Moody.
Yes, I'm going to do the Alliance report first. There is the Meyer Simply Giving campaign that's going to go on. It's through August, but I believe it's going to go on even further than August. But August 14th and the 28th, money donated at Myers will be doubled up to $5,000, and if they get $5,000, one day could result in $15,000. So we want to make sure that we go to Meyer and that we pull one of the tabs or the cards that says Simply Giving Mount Healthy Alliance, and they get quite a bit of money in gift cards that they use to purchase food and other items there for the Alliance. August 11th, the Youth Alliance, the Mount Healthy Youth Alliance, is working with Northwest Schools, and they're going to be at Northgate Mall to register families and distribute food from 9 to 12. They need volunteers to help with that, and so that's part of them registering families. I would imagine that's for the youth program that'll happen during the school year, but also serve any needs and put the word out there that we are present here in Mount Healthy. We do serve 45231 area. The business meeting last Monday, there wasn't really much to discuss. However, it was kind of an awkward situation in that a person from the school district, who's the PR person, brought up that the school district was upset with the school resource officer situation. And I mean, she stated why. I'm not sure why bringing it up at a business association meeting is going to really solve the problem, but obviously she was not happy with the fact that they're not getting the resource officer that they thought coverage they were going to get, or they were going to try to go to Springfield Township. So I don't know, Mayor, if we can maybe look into that. You don't know anything about that?
I do not, so.
Yeah, so it was kind of awkward to report that tonight because it's really not a business association. Unfortunately, I wish that person would have maybe called City Hall or something, and maybe, I don't know what the situation is. Okay, that's it as far as what was of relevance at the business meeting. Beautification, there's no report right now on beautification.
Okay, thank you very much, Jenny. Finance, Mr. Parsons.
I reviewed the statements as of June that were in our packet. A few minor questions, which I think I'll hold off on. I'm going to call a Finance Committee meeting for 6:15 before our next council meeting on August 17th. Committee and the mayor and hopefully our finance director at Mr. Coker's office.
Okay, that it?
We'll look at the July statements at that point and make sure we're on track and get things answered.
Okay, good enough. Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, Parks, Ms. Lingo.
I don't have a report. I just want to say, though, how nice the fireworks were. I thought it would be a bigger crowd, but it was a nice crowd. I think that was there, and
Yes.
the band was great. So they did a great job again this year, so that's all I wanted to say.
Yes, the fireworks were
They
spectacular this year.
were very good.
We had a little rollover from last year's money that was held, didn't we? So,
Very nice.
okay, thank
That's
you.
all.
Streets and safety, Mr. Redding.
Yes, a few things. First, under safety, in your packets was the chief's report for June, but on the back page, and this has been a hot topic lately, was liquor license calls for service. So there's a list of what took place in June at our local bars. So take a look at that. So this is public knowledge. So again, if any of the bars want to see it, it's here. Also, I believe it was last Thursday evening, there were looking into an event, an incident down at Game Time where shots were fired in a parking lot. I don't have all the facts about that. I have not had a chance to talk to the chief about it. So that was on July 15th. So, so I will get more information on that, and I'm sure the chief will have it for the August meeting too, so.
That bar is where?
That's one of the two bars that are in Hilltop Plaza.
Okay.
There's three.
There's three. There's Plush.
Plush, Game
Which
Time,
one am
and
I?
Reminisce.
Reminisce, I forgot Reminisce, yes. Yep, thank you, Jamie. I totally forgot about that.
A question about that, though. When I read it, it says that there was a request for the liquor citation was made. So what does that mean, that the chief or the police officers went right to the liquor licensing board?
Yeah, so that's not a challenge against their liquor license itself.
Okay.
If there is a violation of the liquor license, the chief can notify the liquor board and request that the liquor board give them a liquor citation, which is separate than our own ordinances. So.
But this way they know about it.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So, so that's the safety part. And I'll cover some of the intersections under traffic here. So we also asked, if you recall, for a couple of studies. One study that was done at the intersection of Joseph Street and Adams Road, and you received the document on that. So the findings by TEC are that the hill is more of the blame to blocking the required site. So there is a graph on page 2 that shows how much you should be able to see, I guess, down the street from an intersection. So I'm going to take a minute and find that. Yep. So then there's a diagram on the back of the first page. So basically what they're saying is, in this situation, the intersection is causing it, not any parking. My big disagreement is that, and I think I understand this, I have not had a chance to talk with Bill at length about this, but when they do a site distance is measured from the decision point, which is 14 feet from the edge of the traveled way. So what I think that is 14 feet set back from the intersection that you're approaching. So it would be, you have the crossbar, and then you have the white stop line there. So in reality, most people, yeah, they do stop there, especially if a pedestrian's coming. But typically what you do when you're driving is you roll up as far as you can to the intersection, especially if you have an intersection that may be blocked by shrubbery or trees or whatever, and then you look, to get a sure clear distance so you can either, make your left or right-hand turn. So I was just kind of wondering about some of, if you're in that situation, once you roll up all the way to the intersection, is if that is a different look than what they have, what they're showing here on this diagram. So I was going to talk to Bill about that and see if he can get with TEC just so we have a better understanding of what is going on there. And then, any questions on that? Then the other one was the stop sign. There was a request for a study for a stop sign at Stevens and Park Avenue. Multi-way stop sign, so a four-way stop sign. And so TEC came in and did a count, and that count is on the first page of the document I think everybody received. And it was quite interesting, so I'll just read you the last paragraph here on the first page. It says, in order to meet the volume requirements for a multi-way stop, there must be 8 hours of the day with at least 300 vehicles/hour on the main street and a total of 200 vehicles/day on the side street, along with a 30-second vehicle delay for the side street. There were no hours that met this requirement. The maximum observed Main Street volume was 170 vehicles hours, and the maximum side street volume was only 10 vehicle hours, okay? So that's at Stevens and Park. So again, I got to talk to Bill about this because what interested me was, does this apply to all residential intersections, this graph here, right, or this matrix? Because if that's the case, I would like to know what that looks like for Perry and Compton, for Seward and Compton, and if that would qualify if we did a study there, if that would also qualify for a four-way stop sign. So, and again, another area, because I still am concerned, I am concerned about Joseph and Adams, is could we do a traffic count there to see if that would also qualify for a stop sign? Because I still say that intersection going from west to east on Adams Road, if you're sitting at that stop sign at Joseph, I still say could be a potential accident waiting to happen there. So, and I don't know if there's been any close calls or accidents, say, in the last year or two, and I don't know what that count is. I know Adams Road is pretty busy, but I don't know that Joseph Street is all that busy. So those were my thoughts around that. Again, we got this Friday. Bill has obviously been on vacation, so I'll cover that more with him. I did not have a chance to talk to him about that. Any questions on that one?
Yeah, did you think there was a conclusion given for the Joseph and Adams?
I thought that there was, based upon, let's see, it says TEC will begin work following your notice to proceed. Wait a minute, where was it? The approach did not meet sight distance requirement for either direction. The main factor limiting the sight distance turning left is the hill. Looking to the right, which would be the east, the trees and the vegetation limit the sight distance. TEC evaluated the potential sight distance if the trees were removed. The sight distance could be increased to 233 feet if the closest tree is removed, and 289 feet if trees were removed. It did not mention looking west outside of a picture on the back of the document. So,
Well, they didn't even recommend taking the trees and the vegetation out. They said if they were taken out, that would
Yes.
help.
yes, and they're not our trees.
Right, I understand
So-
that. But we need to, I think we need to get a little more
Exactly, which is what I was-
finality, conclusion on that.
I agree,
study.
which is why I'm having a conversation with Bill about both of these.
And there's parking that could be there, which makes it,
Absolutely, which is what brought this up, with parking in the south side of Adams, on the south side of the street of
Right.
Adams, going from west to
It
east.
does mention west, it just doesn't say west. It says sight distance turning left.
Yeah,
And it does say that it does not meet the site requirements, but it says
Due to the
reason
hill.
is the hill, not the car.
Right.
And I drove it I drive it all the time, but I drove it purposely thinking of this, because that truck always does get in the way of my vision.
yep. And it limits your vision, doesn't it?
Looking at this,
Yes,
the assumption is that you're stopping at that first
the first bar.
line.
Yep,
Which I do, and then if no one's walking, I creep up to look.
yeah.
Right.
So if you're following the letter of the law, yes, it's only the hill that blocks you. If you're encroaching over the sidewalk, then the truck does cause a blind spot.
Yep.
So this study is showing if the driver going north on Joseph is following the law, stopping where you're supposed to stop, not creeping up anymore, then yes, the line of vision is blocked by the hill, not the car.
right,
But in practicality, we all know that we creep up to see better.
Right.
which was my
So
point
that's-
earlier, right?
So it is in here, but the reality is very different than
Yep.
the legality of it.
So when I read this, my note is that is not reality. You attempt to get to the best view you can.
Yeah.
So,
And then the truck does absolutely block you.
yep. So, and I drove, yes,
Just the same thing.
I drove it again today for that same reason, and I was,
The same thing.
so, again, I will follow up with Bill on this.
May I go back to the chief's report to us? I wondered if, there's a lot of issues at Clover Nook, and I understand that's a private area, but have we as the city gone and talked to management about controlling their residents so there's not the congregating in the parking lot? Just all kinds of things.
I was going to bring it up in my report, but I
Okay.
can bring it, no, I can bring it up now. Is this,
Fine
Joe?
with me.
It's-
Yeah, I don't mind.
Yeah, so the chief has brought it up. So one of the biggest issues that they've been having, the city manager and myself have had many conversations about Clover Nook. They have become very responsive on the issues that we've been bringing to them. That wasn't always the case. They have been within the past year. If you go down, the landscaping's all taken care of now. They are cutting the grass regularly. Just this past week, they cut down the trees that were blocking the sidewalk. They've been painting the chip paint. They have been very responsive with that stuff. Part of the issue is they keep changing property managers because they haven't been happy with the property managers they've had. This is where our issues are coming in. They also have gone through a couple security agencies and have not been happy with the security companies. Right now, and that's what the chief keeps recommending, and he is in communication with them. He wants them to have security. When they first started, they had the security companies before you were on council. I don't know if you were on council or not, Cordell. When we first came up with this agreement, they had a security company that actually met during our roll call. Things were working well. Well, that security company is not there anymore. That's about 3 property managers ago, et cetera. They hired another security company, not happy with them. There's been real turnover down there with property managers and with security companies. They would really like, which would be better for all of us, to have detail officers down there, actual police officers or sheriff's deputies. Problem is, right now, there's not officers and sheriff's deputies willing to take those positions. I remember when I started on council 15 years ago, they were fighting for those positions. Things have changed lately. So it is very hard to get detail officers. So this is an issue. There is a big security issue down there. That is part of the reason we're probably seeing a rise in crime. There's not a security company down there right now. And they are trying to fix this. In fact, they were trying to get better. And
Yep.
it's not working right now. So the chief is in constant communication with them, trying to figure that out. It's not fixed right now, obviously. There's a lot of problems, but he is pressuring them constantly about it. I will say that Pearl has become very responsive within the past year, which I cannot say that always. I was very frustrated about a year ago this time when nothing was being kept up with. So that communication has opened up. It is being addressed. We're hoping they'll be able to find a resolution soon. I can ask the chief maybe to update us on the next report.
Yep.
I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, can I just add something to that?
Yeah.
I was going to wait till new business, but yeah, I wanted to address the past couple of shootings there in the past couple. One turned into a homicide, and there's an app called Citizen, and it was right there on Citizen, where people are calling in about the shootings and the homicide, and it's getting out of hand down there.
Now, I will say that, again, the issue we're running into, which we've run into in the past, these incidents that have occurred have not been people whose names are on rentals. So it doesn't mean they're not living there with a friend, with a girlfriend,
Yep.
et cetera. The requirements to live there, as we know, when we approved some of the housing,
Yep.
the requirements went up. It's actually harder to get housing there now than it was previously. But we know quite often people stay with friends, or may not have been residents at all, may have been just people stopping by for who knows what reason. The chief is also talking to them about possible assigned parking spots and where you have to register your driver's license, et cetera. So those conversations are going on right now as well, which could be helpful. It's a problem. I will say on the flip side, I've gotten pressure in the past year. They have shown up as one of the top 10 evictors in Hamilton County. So if there's a perception that they're just putting up with anything from their residents, that's not accurate. They are one of the top evictors in the county. I just had Council on Aging reach out to me a week and a half ago complaining that they're too difficult and someone got evicted, and they're struggling to find a place for them now. We also had Tick and Farm reach out to us, and I forget the name of the organization. A few of our residents that were Bhutanese, Nepali immigrants that were working at Tick and Farm had been evicted from there. And there were complaints with that, and I had to facilitate some conversations over that. So I don't want the perception to be out there that Clover Nook Apartments just letting anybody live there and isn't following any of the rules that we agreed to, or that they agreed to get their housing credits, because they're evicting a lot of people. And I'm getting pressure on the other side that they're evicting too many people.
Why are they evicting them? I mean, is it financial reasons
whole
or
slew of-
behavior?
All of the
Yes?
above. Yeah.
Well, go ahead. You go ahead, Keisha. Go ahead.
So, two comments. One, I think you've answered, but what has Chief Damasi done or said since the shootings? What has he done in terms of having more patrol or talking to them? You said that they're working with them, but what is he think in terms of implementing something?
I don't know what he has changed from our department perspective, and I can ask him to tell you that.
Yeah.
I do know that he has been speaking to them about the necessity of having security.
Because something needs to happen.
Well, and to me, it's more than security also. I mean, there's research out there that police officers need to be in the community, of the community, and know the community. We've got bicycles that these policemen have. I've never seen them on bicycles unless they're in the park. I also, there was a part of what we were going to try to
Just
do.
want you to know I'm taking notes. I'm not ignoring you.
No, yeah, that's okay. Because I'll just
I'm
keep
writing
talking.
down
I'll
what
just
you're
keep talking
saying.
to you anyway. I'll call you up. I'll text you. The other thing too is you know, we talk about that research, that getting more patrolmen on the streets and having the details, but that's not the total picture. And I know Tick and Farm was going to do some programming there, and I don't know how much they've reached out, but to me, in the police, there needs to be more of a plan of being in the community too, because, okay, we're talking about those, you know, the shootings and everything there, and that maybe some of the people don't live there, or maybe they're hanging out there with somebody. But the other point is, if the people that are living there deserve not only the details, but they also deserve to find out how they can, maybe the block watch program again, where they look out for each other, they feel empowered, so that they feel like, you know, if they see something suspect, they can let the property manager know, or it just seems to me there needs to be a more cohesive plan, and just not for Compton Apartments. I mean, in the city as well. I mean, I live next to Heritage Park. I go water those plants every day, and there's beer cans in there and everything. And I'm not saying that you're going to find everybody that's drinking beer in that park, but it's just being more visible than, the details are fine, but just to plan other things, where you're out bicycling on a bike, a policeman is, and they go up and talk to some people walking, or kids, just that interaction. And down at Compton Apartments, it seems to me, knowing you've got that community room, you've got a management company that I'm hoping is better than what we had before, and they're trying. There's got to be more down there than just making sure there's details. I don't know, am I making sense at all?
And it's a huge.
There's research out there that says how you can do that. They do that in the city of Cincinnati in a lot of respects.
Yeah, but, I mean,
Huh?
I guess the concern is, right, I mean, we usually only have 2 or 3 officers on at one shift. That's.
Well, we've hired more officers and we got a grant.
On the flip side, there's
Yes.
450 units, there's about 3 people per unit. I'm just
Right.
guessing that. That's a big portion of our population down there.
Yep.
I know you said something to the effect of, and I know this has been in the past, but now that they have new management in place, didn't they change their protocol in terms of who could be there and the standards that they had? Because I remember we had that discussion a while back when they took over that property, that they were going to have all these different prerequisites. I think they said it right here in council, that they were going to have all these different
Yeah,
prerequisites
and they
set.
did, that was part of their housing credits. And I do know they are still under that, and that's part of the reason they've had so many evictions, because there are strict rules on.
Not just the housing credits, we gave them
Yes.
property tax abatements.
Right.
And I had Mr. Coker talking to our law director to see if they're in breach of contract or that, so we can revoke those property tax abatements.
Yep.
The other thing too is when I'm talking about, and I recognize what you said, Joe, about 2 officers, but we've got organizations here that the police department really doesn't work with. They do their own Meet the Police Officer. One year, they did their own thing for Christmas and weren't even part of the sharing tree. What I'm thinking is that we've got organizations that can help the police department. We've got the Alliance, we've got the Kids Program. You know, we've got Ticoon Farm. We've got some churches that would probably, that do the community meal at Trinity, the community garden situation. We've got, I think, organizations that could work with the police department to enhance maybe some of the programming or the outreach, so it's not just that, well, you know, we only have a few police officers, but if they would work together, I think, with more organizations, I think it would help them out too. That's just my opinion.
Well, my last point, I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but just a thought. Because this really bothered me that we were having all of these incidents down there. And just think about it from this perspective, because this is how I think about it. It may be just happening down at Clovernook, but Clovernook's not 5 minutes from where I live. It's not 5 minutes from where you live, Mayor. It's not 5 minutes from where you live. So just because it's happening right there does not mean that it doesn't affect all of Mount Healthy. And so it's trickling. It affects everybody. So I really hope that everybody thinks about it from that perspective and not just, well, it's just happening there. And that's a Clovernook apartment issue.
Yeah, yes, I'm just here agreeing, sorry.
Don't get me started. No, I'm just kidding. But no, seriously, I think that there needs to be, I agree with what you said, Jenny, and I think that we all need to not only support the efforts of the police department, but also any efforts that the Clovernook management is making to make that place safe. The people that live there deserve to feel safe. They deserve to be able to live in their apartments and not have to worry about being safe in where they're living.
Right.
So whatever we can do to make that happen needs to happen.
I will just add one last thing. Take a shot has been one of the biggest complaints I've had from residents at Clovernook Apartments.
And that's something.
By far.
And that could very well be how it trickles that way.
And we are actively working, challenging their liquor license right now. Especially the people that live towards Compton. Said that fights or groups hang out and make their way over there, so.
Well, and that Pearl, remember when they bought that property, they were concerned with that
Yes.
strip right there. Remember, they are the ones
They
that
discussed
said,
purchasing it.
we're going to put a lot of money in here and you're investing in us too, but that strip right there we're concerned about. They brought that up years ago.
Gary Perkins is listing
Up for
all of these
sale.
properties up for sale right now.
I saw that,
So there's
yeah.
possibilities there as well.
Yeah, good.
Anything else on this issue?
Not on this issue, but I still have more. Sorry. So
Young man.
maybe something for a work session, actually. Also, there were some documents in our packet concerning the City of Mount Healthy OPWC Round 35 funding recommendations. But more importantly, I think that's all been gone through. If you look at the top right, it's based from August of 2020. The good news is that we received the $100,000 grant from the Municipal Road Fund, which was the other document that was in there. So that will take care of and it's listed at the bottom of the other document where we were expecting $95,000 from the municipal road funds for grant for engineering. So it looks like we got that. So, and then.
Hamilton Avenue, right?
Yes, that's Hamilton Avenue. Questions, Bob? Okay. And then finally, Adams and Hickman, there were some questions and a document in your packet concerning some work or how the maintenance of traffic on the private drive. So if there's any questions on that, and there was also some discussion, it looks like, about furnishing a fire hydrant down on the private drive part. And then there's also a document in your packet concerning Gregory Forrest Lester, which Karen Arnett spoke about earlier, and it gives a very good breakdown of the health of the trees that are being looked at or that may be impacted by the road construction, and some recommendations on what Gregory Forrest Lester is making those recommendations, what they think we should do. So
I have a question about that.
yes.
I read it with interest, and I wondered if the city is going to assume the whole cost for all the recommendations that they make.
I think it should be shared.
Thank you, so do I.
I was going to try, yeah. I guess this is under streets. We don't have the cost yet, so the administration's not comfortable saying we should pay or share when we don't know how much it's going to be. It's the difference between $1,000 and $1 million,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly, yep.
But we are looking at the idea of sharing if it's manageable.
I mean, that's the most I think we should do is share.
And not for all of the recommendations. We're looking at the fertilization aspect of it. The aspect that the street would impact. So the street would impact the roots. So the fertilization aspect, the injection aspect is what we are considering right now. This has not been decided, but this is what we're considering, and approaching each of the residents and asking them if they would like to share the costs. Now, if they do not want to, that's up to them, because it's their trees. As far as like corrective pruning and large deadwood, these are their trees, so the administration's not even considering paying that expense right now.
And I was even thinking that, I don't know what the cost is, but it sounded like they wanted that fertilizer done twice, right at the time of construction and then next year. And that, depending on the cost and what our possibilities are, that we would do one, they would do one.
Yeah, so they, how the logistics would work would have to be worked out. The costs, we got this, does it show the date?
The 17th of June, I think.
We got this on the 7th, and then Bill and I had Greg Cutter reach out the next week, and the person that would get back with us on the pricing was on vacation for the week. So we were supposed to be receiving it after that, so we should be getting it any day now, what the cost would be, and then we'd move from there.
Okay.
But yeah, that is partially that's what we're considering right now. I don't want to say yes, we're going to do it, because like I said, you don't want to commit to more than we can afford. But as long as it's within reason within our budget, then yeah, we think that's a reasonable and fair thing to do. We're impacting it by widening the street. Now, I was going to add this in my report, but we also, and I do want to thank Karen for bringing up a lot of the issues and with the tree commission. And then Karen was also great helping us with which arborists, are good at doing these kinds of things. And luckily, he is one of them that is good at this. One of the things that also came into consideration is in the pre-construction meeting. Bill also went with the contractor to make sure that they are not going to be parking their
Heavy equipment
under the trees, make sure they're not compacting the soil, make sure they are following all the other guidelines that were recommended. So we did add those into the requirements in the pre-construction meeting. So we are taking all this into serious consideration right now.
And as a Hickman resident,
Yep.
a lot of this is stated for Adams, but it doesn't spell out that it's going to be for Hickman also. Do we have the same, if they're going to close our drives, are we going to know about that before?
Pre-construction stuff?
And, I've been trying to keep my end of the street notified, but no real formal notices have.
My understanding, I'll check, because I may be wrong on this. My understanding is that residents will always have access to their driveways. Now, the issue that is coming up here is strictly the private drive. Because the problem with the private drive is there's one lane that goes over the culvert.
Okay, the very end.
Yes.
Okay.
So when they replace the culvert, the people that live on the private drive will have no driving access to their homes. So that's where this comes in. They will be notified, I forget how long in advance. It's all spelled out in that
Right,
document
I saw
for
that.
you. Yeah, but they're 24-hour advance written notice. They're also working on a place where they can park and then walk. They're gonna have essentially like a bridge type thing so that the residents can walk back to their houses, or just avoid their house during construction time. But then when construction's over for the day, let's just say 5 o'clock, they will make sure there's plating, et
Okay.
cetera, so they can drive back. That part I know for sure. My understanding is the rest of us, you, I, the rest of us on Elizabeth and Hickman will be able to access our houses.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll check to make sure of that, to make sure I'm stating that right, and if that's not accurate, I'll let you know. It's a good question.
That's all I have.
Okay.
You sure?
I hate to ask this, are there any questions?
I'm
Okay.
done.
School, Mr. George.
At this time, no report.
I found out he's a junior.
I have a question. When does school start? Do you know?
I think the end of August.
Late August? Okay.
Early.
Earlier than that.
Let
Is
me
it after our
find it.
next meeting?
It is the day of our next meeting.
August 17th? Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
Can we have some signs put up? Because, boy, everybody asks me, when school are we in? Can we make a right on red, blah, blah, you know, those kind of things. I mean, can we celebrate that the children are going back? This is,
Put it on the Facebook page.
you know,
City.
city council, we should be there giving them high fives when they walk in the door.
No, the school
Yay.
board should be, not us.
Oh, they're part of us.
No, they're not. Library, Ms. Dosa.
Nothing new to report.
Okay. Urban Tree, Ms. Lingo.
No report.
We Thrive, Cindy.
Yes, we had our meeting on June the 22nd, and not great attendance. It was our last Zoom meeting, we hope. Our next meeting will be live and person at Fibonacci, so that we're looking forward to that. At the June farmers market, they did have 2 folks use the SNAP, which they're encouraged about because that's something that they're trying to get building up and using. So they were pleased. Our navigator is now on board. Her name is Jody Pickering, and she's been here in Mount Healthy before, so we should know her. We're working with, I think last month, Ms. Moody asked about money for the Alliance kids to be able to go swimming, so we've been working this month trying to figure out how we're going to do that. There is money available from the grant that came through some time ago. Mary from Tecum Farm is the one that's keeping track of that, and I have my list of questions to ask her next week when we meet about how much money's in there and is anybody else using it and those kind of things. So, any questions?
I have a question. Doesn't pertain to that report, but when we adopted We Thrive about 4 or 5 years ago, we were on a specific track, one of their tracks, and it was for healthier citizens, residents of Mount Healthy. Had to do with the diabetes rate and everything like that, and walkability. We had the sidewalks marked with 1, 2, and 3 mile hikes. Are we still on those tracks?
To be honest, I think so. And I know they have talked since I've been on the committee about looking at that and seeing if we're staying on or moving on. I'm actually trying to learn. Anybody that knows how to do this, I would take your help immediately on how to draw out your own maps, because I now have the narrative of those 1, 2, and 3. And they've told me where I can go on the computer, but the computer and I are arguing about how to do that. So
Who's winning that argument?
you know, the laptop always does. So anybody that can help with, I think they're called My Maps in Google. I would love to learn how to do that better. So we are looking at trying to come up with, and that's kind of in my court, but like I said, I'm fighting the devices at this point. So, and I'll bring it up, but that's my recollection is they were looking at that and they kept talking about changing and looking into whether we should change it or not, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can shed some light on that if you'd like me to.
Yes, please.
So every 2 years, they do a community assessment where stakeholders from the community are brought in, and they do what's called a change tool, where they look at what the past objectives are, whether they've been met or not, what the current needs are, what the current climate is, what the current government situation is as far as updated ordinance, et cetera, and then determine where to move from there. And that's called our action plan. And I'll take the blame for that. I don't think we've done a good job presenting the new action plan each time that's been done, because diabetes was the first thing, and it's not funny. I don't know, it's odd. So when we first started, we had the highest rate of diabetes in the county, and we addressed that. We had diabetes or glucose checks for free at CVS, at Walgreens. We did a lot of great programming. And then when they did a heat map, because I had some questions about it. When they did a heat map, they found that the heavy concentrations were in our senior homes. And we have the highest concentration of senior housing in the county. And when you looked at the heat maps, that's where the high concentrations were. So they actually determined, if you just looked at the basic numbers, it was awful for Mount Healthy. But when we reached out to the senior home, they already had procedures, plans in place. So that wasn't as much of the agenda. And Jenny was on at that time, so we moved forward to some other things. So what I can do is, we do have the current action plan. Kim Chelf has it, and I can send that forward. Now, it all has to do with health, healthy eating, being active, et cetera, but there are different shifts in the priorities, so I can send the updated one. I can have that in the next packet. I think that would make perfect sense.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Cindy, because
No.
you've only been on with the current plan.
Correct.
You haven't been part of the change tool assessment.
We haven't changed that.
That's right. All right, I will send that.
Is that everything, Cindy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You want to move on to the mayor's report? Mr. Wolf?
Yeah, crossed a lot off, that's good. Just reminders, concerts are on Friday nights still into September. Movies start Saturday night, July 31st, and go on for 4 weeks. So that starts in about a week and a half. I do have an update that I got from Metro, from SORTA, which is promising. So they tracked they changed the frequency of some of our routes, and the best news is Route 16, without getting into too much of the details. That's from Mount Healthy down to downtown. There's the 16 to 17. Under the current plan, our 16, we used to have a frequency of every 60 minutes. The new, not playing, because it's implemented now, is now 30-minute frequencies. They updated the frequency. They also added the Sunday service lines. They also have 24-hour route now. And weekday ridership after these changes has gone up 30%. What's amazing, though, is Saturday ridership has gone up 92%.
Wow.
So it really has seen a marked improvement. They also now have Sunday service. There's nothing to compare it to, but they're averaging a little over 160 riders per Sunday, and those are
Really?
more limited hours. So it is surprise. I think the 92% is a surprise. I think we expected an increase in ridership, but 92% is really impressive. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up is there's a packet for the Civil Service Committee. You're just seeing this now, so there's no expectation that we do anything with this, unless for some reason you are itching to do something with it today, which I doubt that you are. Right, I think we should take some time and look at this. So, this is in here now for you to review, not as an official reading, unless you want to take a reading, and then, we would have to do that under, I guess, new business. But my recommendation is you just look at this, don't even consider it. It's all been updated through the Civil Service Commission, and Bill explains it on the front. Any feedback you have, you can send to Bill or I, and then we will ask you all to consider it. Now, the one thing he did ask is whether you all would rather have it go to committee, to have a committee look at it, or whether, since you all have it now, you can look at it over the next month, make your own changes, ask your own questions, and then consider it as a full council. It doesn't matter to Bill or I, but if you want to think about that, I guess we can talk about it in new business. So we don't have to talk about it right now. You can wait a minute for that. Just whether you'd rather go to committee or whether everybody have input on it from the beginning. And then I do have a few things to say about the zoning ordinance, but I will wait until we get to that, because we're about to get to that. And I believe that is all. Yes, that's all I have. Oh, I'm sorry. No, one more thing. I had a resident bring it up to me, and then I missed the last We Thrive meeting, and it was brought up. Councilmember Sheets sent this to Bill about possible proclamations. And I just want to be honest about this with these issues. So a proclamation for Juneteenth and a proclamation for Pride Month. Since then, Juneteenth has become a federal holiday. So we will be recognizing that in Mount Healthy moving forward. As far as Pride Month goes, I've done many weddings. I actually did a wedding between two men. I am very open to any ways of celebrating everybody in our community. I have been asked each year to do a resolution or proclamation for Pride Month. Each year that I've been mayor, I have chosen not to, not for any reasons of, well, let me state this a different way. When I became mayor, one of the first things I did is I read up what makes successful mayors, and one of the most successful things I read is to try to keep national politics out of small town government. And I've had requests to do proclamations for and against a lot of big issues, and I have purposely not done that because I think our council works best when big national issues aren't brought here. Gay marriage is legal. We have, I've officiated over one as mayor and will continue to if I have requests, and I'm very happy to. If anybody has a request, I'm willing to do it. I'm afraid of opening the door for lots of issues. So I personally have chosen not to do proclamations or resolutions over national issues, regardless of how I feel on them. I personally have participated in Black Lives Matter March. I did not want to do a proclamation from council. I've personally married a gay couple. I don't want to bring a proclamation to council, because if there are council members that disagree with me on an issue, I just don't want to bring that here, to be honest with you. I know we come from different opinions, different backgrounds, all of us, different lifestyles, and I just personally think that we can lead by example without making things more difficult for us. If we had the power to vote for gay marriage or vote for other issues, it might be different, but we don't. So I'd rather leave that to the the bigger government where they're able to make those decisions, to be honest with you, and I would be more vocal. On a personal level, I am very vocal about a lot of things. I try not to as mayor from an official level in this seat. So I will, and I'd be happy to say that at the next We Thrive meeting. You don't have to take that back.
Well, no, thank you for, I mean,
Yeah.
sorry I didn't include that in my report, but I was going to bring it up in the
And
new
it's-
business.
And I don't know how to, I didn't word that very eloquently. I don't know how to word that eloquently, but I personally have
I understand what
a
you
separate issue with the gun issue as a teacher that's been on lockdown and has had guns in my school and have been terrified. I would personally love to do some proclamations about guns. On the other hand, I take my scouts out shooting on weekends, and I'm conflicted on issues like that. And I just don't want to bring up national issues here, personally. So if council wants to do a proclamation or resolution and majority votes on something that's national, I will sign it. I just personally we have a difficult enough job as it is. I don't want to muddy the water with guns, abortion, any of that stuff. It happened in the 90s. I know when my dad was on council, right, there were some national issues brought in, and I've heard about how ugly things got.
Yes.
And
And I agree with what you're saying.
I do too.
sorry,
I think-
that was long-winded. And
No, we do, I do appreciate that we do, we try to lead by example, we try to work together. I mean, I think there are sometimes people don't understand or can't wrap their mind around that we all work together because some of us are listed as Republicans and some of us are Democrats. And on the national level and the state level, it's gotten very ugly when everybody on either side says they want to get along and they don't. And I think sometimes when you do proclamations like that, it just incenses people to take it the wrong way and to maneuver it and manipulate it the way they want. And we're here, I think one of the most wonderful things I've witnessed over the years here in Mount Healthy is how we all work together, even though we still are labeled as a party, you know?
Yeah, we're here for the citizens, not.
Right.
so that's where I am on that. Next We Thrive meeting, I'll say that to We Thrive. Sorry, that was not very eloquent, it was very long-winded, but that's where I am.
Hard to describe.
Difficult subject.
Yeah, and as a teacher, I try to balance that as well. So want to make sure everyone feels comfortable and facts come out, but at the same time, try to make sure everybody feels
Right.
respected.
Is that the report then, Mayor?
It is.
Okay, City
you.
Manager Bill is not here,
Right.
so we're going to move on to the Finance Director, Mr. Bauer.
Only thing for me, June financials in your packets. Let me know if you have questions, or let Bob know. You can bring it up at the next finance meeting. That's all I have.
Thanks, Scott. Time for ordinances and resolutions. We have a resolution that has a second reading coming up. Resolution number 21-1165. A resolution to approve the recommendation to the Planning Commission relating to the zoning ordinances for the City of Mount Healthy districts for assorted zoning code amendments, additions, modifications, and deletions.
Also, I do have something I would like to say about this, and then John's here.
Okay.
Questions for people. The chicken issue, we are leaving as it's written, right? We decided not to change that.
It was carried over from.
Correct. So you will be allowed to have your chickens. People will be able to have chickens. There was, I
was wondering what that confusion was about.
Yeah, so there was a recommendation, and this is where the confusion comes from. First of all, I do want to make sure everyone understands this process. So when this was reviewed, which took how long? A long time, right? Till 2019? Yeah, 2 years. It was led by community stakeholders. So Jim Lowenberg, who's here, Kim Cremines, Betty Bullis, Dave Osterday, who was here, Susan Frank, Diane Kallmeyer, and then other people at different meetings were part of this, with John Young, who's our consultant from Urban Fast Forward, who did the Healthy Hilltops, and Bill, and then Gordon and Bill Knight had input as well. So this was a citizen-led process. It was drafted with the purpose of making more sense. Our old code was very hard to read, very difficult to read. It would refer you back to another section, which then referred to another section. The chicken part, just to talk about that, was left as is, which we do allow chickens. Some of you were on council when we went through that drama. And then when it came to Planning Commission, one of the staff actually recommended that we limit the chickens even more, that we make a change to our current zoning. And Planning Commission shot that down. We'd already gone through the chicken issue. We've approved the chickens. We did not want to change that. I know Jim, who was on the committee, spoke up at the Planning Commission meeting and said, please don't change it back. We've already been through this. A lot of residents had input on that. So Planning Commission shot down any suggestion to limit that. In fact, Gordon and Bill Knight at Planning Commission had many recommendations that they wanted to change from the citizens' draft. And we shot almost all of them down. I'm trying to think if we accepted any of their recommendations. A couple of them. And I think those were like smaller enforcement issues, but most of them we actually kind of shot down and stayed with what the residents wrote. So the chicken part, there was some confusion there. I know there was going to be a change, but no, we're keeping that. With the bees, I know that was a question. And bees, the way our enforcement works is we allow bees right now, and that isn't going to change on the enforcement side. I know there's some confusion in here because one part of the zoning code says anything not, forget the wording.
Anything not listed is prohibited.
Correct. But the way that our administration's interpreting that, is since we have allowed bees and it's not explicitly prohibited, it's not going to be prohibited. This is one of the reasons I know people get annoyed when you regulate everything and when there's too many regulations. Just some history with the chickens. We've always allowed chickens. We've never not allowed chickens in Mount Healthy. It was never in our code. So there were, backyard chicken was the main one. This was one of my first years on council. Backyard chicken was a national website, said that Mount Healthy didn't allow chickens, but we did, and we always have. So I reached out to them and said, why did you list that? They said because we didn't have a code explicitly saying that you could have chickens. They interpreted it to as we could not. So we actually worked on a code years ago to put it in there so that people would know you could have chickens here, which sounds kind of backwards to me, but that's the reality. And honestly, the bee issue, my point of view is right now, I would kind of like to leave the bee issue where we're allowing it until there's an issue brought up, because I don't want to bring,
Right.
I don't want to open that can of worms right now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jim, Karen,
Regulate.
Right now, we
ready to
haven't
fight?
had issues.
Regulate it if we don't have a problem.
Yeah, right? Good. That's a good one.
Regulate it if we don't
Right
have-
now, we haven't had issues with it,
Yeah,
so right now, we're allowing bees, and if we get to a point where we need to codify it, we can.
So we allow as many bees as people want? As many hives? We don't have a limit per acre? I'm just asking.
Right now, no.
I'm not against bees. I'm
Right
for
now,
bees,
no.
but
Right now, no.
we don't have anything. It's just allowed.
Correct.
Okay.
Right now.
A
Yes.
versus
Now,
B.
with that, and with the front yard gardens, with all that, the purpose of this was to clean it up, to make a more easily readable document, et cetera. I would really like council to pass this, so that we can have an updated, easy to read, easy to follow
Just cover
code
that
that everyone
front
that
yard
moves into town can understand. If there are specific issues that people have with the backyard garden, or with the front yard gardens, et cetera, those things can be amended or kicked out without throwing out the whole ordinance. 'Cause I don't want that to happen. I really don't. I think we need to do this. We've been working on it for 2 years. Now, I did include a letter, and I want to bring it up now, from Sarah Danks. She emailed us tonight in support of front yard gardens. We've heard some other people. So I'll let you all ask John about this. We can have a discussion with the ordinance. with questions people have. I believe the question and answers you sent were in the packet, correct? Yes. And then residents of the audience, was that in the packet out there for you all to see? No? So I have some of those.
It's in this package on the front.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's maybe there was somewhere.
Okay.
Another copy of it. if you want to find it.
I think they're getting extras. Yeah. You can have this one if you want. We can just do it. Because I have 2 copies. I have the actual email copy I printed out. Set up that way.
Yeah, why don't you go up to the podium, John?
And I do, before he talks, I want to thank everybody involved in the process, all the residents. So again, Jim Lowenberg, Kim Cremines, Betty Bullis, Dave Osterday, Susan Frank, and Diane Kallmeyer. It's a lot of work.
Yes, it was.
Can't imagine doing that. It's hard enough reading it, much
Yeah.
less editing it. Thank you.
Edited it quite a few times. So, yeah. It's quite an exciting process to write this code.
Okay, we get to ask questions now?
Well, do you want, just going to take questions?
Yeah, just here to answer any questions that you guys have on this.
Okay.
If not, I'll talk about trees.
Well, we get a lot of questions tonight, as you've heard, and comments and letters about the front yard garden. Now, I'm a gardener, but I don't have a front yard to garden in, so I guess my question is, gardens can look immaculate and wonderful, and gardens can look like the devil.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how they take care of their garden, how they do it. But I personally am not against the front yard garden if it's maintained. If it's just an overgrown, and then who makes that decision?
Right.
So it's a sticky situation. I don't know, is there any comment on that, or?
So this regulation came out of the Planning Commission, actually, and staff. There was a desire from the Planning Commission to kind of like address some of the things that you talked about as far as like having vegetation that was overgrown and so on and so forth. So the compromise was to draft regulation that would limit it going into a front yard setback. So, and that is what was copacetic to the Planning Commission.
Yeah.
My interpretation of, or my sense of this is that we've had conversation before about homes that have honeysuckle and other things just grown over the front of the house, and if a emergency vehicle had to get in there, would they be able, or they're hiding trash behind it, or maybe you have things that are overgrown on a sidewalk and people can't walk on the sidewalk. And we've got issues with people with high grass, where they don't mow their lawns, and so then we have to go out and mow their lawns. So, when you're talking about something that maybe doesn't look good, my sense is if you're going to put the work in to have a front yard garden, that you're probably going to maintain it, or at least, it's a usable, you're going to be growing vegetables or even flowers. I guess the only thing I would be concerned is if somebody wanted to grow corn in the front or something so high that, maybe there would be some kind of a level with that. I'm not really sure. That might have to be a setback, because I could see that being a problem, especially if it impeded the site, again, if you're driving out of a driveway or something like that. But I'm not opposed to a front yard garden. However, there are people that will maintain it so people can walk on a sidewalk, and those who won't.
Right.
And, we have issues mostly with overgrown foliage and things like that, more than I would think we would have with people that are going to have nice flowers in their front yard or vegetables, so.
So yeah, the corn issue was actually specifically mentioned in the planning commission meeting as a concern that they did not want to have vegetation that was going taller than what was allowed for the front yard fence actually height. So that's where that requirement comes into play. The garden itself, vegetable garden, is defined in the zoning code specifically to basically encompass the types of vegetables and fruits that would be for human consumption. And so in the instance of like honeysuckle and stuff like that, that would just be under general property maintenance code regulations. The other thing is that this doesn't really prohibit side or rear yard gardens as well. So you can still have gardens in your backyard or on your side yard behind the front of your house.
Would a fruit tree in the front yard be a front yard garden?
That's a good question.
I know people who have fruit trees in their front yard, and they're just not a problem, other than you have everybody picking your fruit, but.
I think a tree would be a little bit different of classification than the others, but I think
Yeah.
that's also an interpretive analysis from the city staff as far as what they would consider with that.
So is 6 feet because of the fact that it could impede on a sidewalk or site, or why was it 6 feet?
If I recall correctly, there was a concern about like animals and stuff like that, and just being able to see things in the front yard from the code officials. So
Oh.
that's where that came from.
Okay, the 1 foot setback from the back edge of the sidewalk, that's just simply because that's about the property line normally, right?
Right, yeah, and so, and that's a very standard regulation that's found in a lot of zoning codes across the country. Really, it comes down to just making sure that there's a clear path for pedestrians as a means of egress, and also, of course, as highlighted earlier this evening, handicap accessible, people with strollers and wheelchairs are also of concern with that, just making sure that the public ways are clear.
Well, I remember
Debris.
the days of pushing a stroller, that there was many streets I couldn't go down with it because of the bushes and hedges and so forth.
That's still true today.
And in Ross, Debbie and I walk a lot, and that still is an issue which, so now, when we talk about this, we're moving from zoning to property maintenance, but I think these two blend, because if we're gonna allow gardening up, I don't know what, if you change it from 6 feet, what do you change it to, right?
Right.
And so that's a big issue is, you allow this and then all of a sudden it becomes a maintenance nightmare for Bill Knight, who's only, here 2 days a week anyway? That, and then how does it impact people's property, the people that live next to you when they go to sell their homes? When you move into an area like Mount Healthy, you're not moving to the country, right? You're moving to a suburban/urban area, and there's an expectation there before, when you buy a home in this area of what that is going to look like within a reasonable, within a reasonable box, I'll say. So that's why I struggle with this, and how does that impact you, again, as somebody who has a home in Mount Healthy and somebody grows a garden in their front yard that might be, if the setback's 35 feet, and they're growing it out 17 and a half feet, and they're not keeping it nicely, and, how does that impact you financially as a homeowner in Mount Healthy?
Well,
So-
I mean, as you know, when you buy a house, you're also buying the block and the community as well. So, curb appeal and those types of things do come into consideration when
Absolutely.
homeowners making purchases. But that being said, not all gardens are created equal. Some gardens are well maintained and aesthetically pleasing and great, and then some are just are not maintained, and it really comes down to how how that impacts. And so what regulating it through a zoning code is kind of it's a one size fits all approach to some degree. So it's like we are limiting the good and the bad ones at that point.
Absolutely. And it punishes the good and doesn't, then we're fighting the battle.
Right.
And we have been fighting the battle on the maintenance side, right?
Right.
Of homes that just, think, oh, mine looks great. Well, if you talk to the neighbor, they're like, hell no, this is negatively impacting my property, you know, so.
Right.
So it's, yeah, it's a push-pull for sure, and depending upon what we do, we could add to Bill Knight's nightmare of trying to administrate this, so.
I'm not really sure how many people are going to say, man, now I can go put a garden in my front yard. Because that takes a lot of work to do that, because you've got to dig up grass, you know, you've got to plant. It's not that easy to do. I'm just,
Water lines.
yeah. It's,
I have a garden in my front yard. I'd like to keep it. I mean, I think it may reach the 6 feet. I may not have extended it out, but give it another year, it might be out there. And, I mean, it's mint, it's lavender, it's rosemary. I got a lot of herbs out there. It looks great. And I got a lot, so come by and pick some.
Okay, well.
I mean, you know, as far as the code, I mean, there are a couple other questions I have, but yeah, I had a real problem with the garden because I walk, you know, I say that often, I'm a walker, and I can't hardly walk most places because of the overhang and my feet tangled up. And if I'd hit a garden, a vegetable garden, I'm happy. I mean, totally happy. So, I mean, on the whole, I'm for approving this, except taking out the gardening, front yard gardening.
I understand that. And I actually do need mint, so it was somewhat of a joke, but
Come on over.
my poor mint plant is not doing well. I need mint. So anyway, I actually.
Can I just
go ahead.
clarify John's role? I don't want you to think John's advocating everything that's in here.
Right.
John took the recommendations and put them in here, so, yeah.
Right.
Mostly came from residents as well as Bill and Gordon and Bill and then Planning Commission, so.
Correct. I was acting.
Jim.
go ahead.
I know this isn't a public hearing, but if I can just
You're
make a
good.
quick comment. Currently, front yard gardens are not prohibited, so people can have gardens. I don't know of any place in the city where it's been an issue to have it.
Right.
So if it's not an issue, why do we need to prohibit it? And just as the planning commission stuck that in at their meeting, there's no reason council can't take it out and pass the rest of it.
It's just like with the,
If it becomes an
right.
issue,
Right.
you could then deal with it.
Agreed.
I've never heard of it being an issue.
Agreed.
Currently,
Well, and we talked about that with the bees, didn't we? We said we weren't going to put anything in because people have bees and we don't see it an issue right now, right?
That's the way I
Three-
feel
yeah,
as well.
Three beekeepers in this room right now, so.
Right.
Want to start a fight?
It's not that easy to be a beekeeper, so.
Yeah, maybe.
So I'm not entirely sure. Maybe Mr. Mayor can help out with this. If you can, at this point in the second reading, conditionally remove or change the text. But I would say one of the things that one avenue forward would be to adopt the zoning code. And then as soon as the zoning code is adopted, City Council can make a motion to send to Planning Commission a text amendment that would revisit the front yard garden discussion and clarify those regulations.
But why do we have to approve it first?
Because the process that I'm outlining is under the new code.
So we can't take it out.
Currently, if you have a garden when the new code the new code would come into effect, if it were to pass today, it would be 30 days from today.
30.
So that would be August, right? And so anything that's existing right now would probably be considered non-conforming existing, so you're probably good for like the rest of the season. So that gives you the fall and the winter to really kind of hammer out a better regulation that works with what the concerns of city staff and the Planning Commission, and then they can bring that back to you guys for an amendment to the text.
Can I ask a
Sense.
question? Isn't that just kicking the can down the road? Because it sounds like there's a fairly strong feeling on the part of council to amend and remove that. And if you send it back to the Planning Commission who approved it in the first place, then you're just gonna have this protracted problem in the future of how do you resolve it? And you know, why not just deal with it now rather than pushing it into the future where its future is uncertain? certain.
Well, I've got a concern about corn being grown 8 feet high in the front yard and lima beans. I grow lima beans. I have a concern of that, and I don't know whether that's ever going to be an issue, but I understand what you're saying, but I don't know.
I don't think we can, Mayor, or John, we can't amend this right now after first reading, can we? Does that change?
I thought you could, yeah. I just texted to make sure.
Yeah,
I think you can.
I would not make the recommendation.
And then you
as far as
Take it out, then vote
You
on
can
it.
make a motion to
Yeah.
adopt as amended.
So we can change it now.
I'd rather
So-
change it now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to find my copy
It has
of
to
the
be.
full
I think there
code.
needs to
I
be
think I
some
left
work
that
done
home.
on how you're going to amend it. You know, if you amend it by simply removing the whole paragraph about front yard gardens, I don't think that's being very, I don't know what word to use. I say keep it the way it is, and then we got a year, as John has said, to,
I
No,
agree.
he's saying keep
If
it the
you-
way it is now, yeah.
The way it is, if you don't have it in there. Isn't that correct?
Right.
Yeah, if we took it out, it
So
would keep the
if
way
we
it
took
is.
it out, it would just.
Because
be
the
way-
planning
yeah, but we
commission
haven't
just put it
accomplished
in.
anything. We haven't prohibited somebody from growing corn in their front yard or the 10-foot tall lima bean, which I have in my backyard.
But the plan that was, this is the issue with it being such a long plan. I don't have, I thought I brought the full text with me.
Recommendation is that, I would say, is that your issue is with the 6 feet into the front yard. And that's all that is limiting it.
Where-
If you did that at 6 feet limit, that the garden must not go past 6 feet from the sidewalk, or, and that's still not saying, basically, if you're taking that 6 feet from the sidewalk, see where you would not have the garden, I think it probably will initially, I don't know, maybe it was not what it was. That would give you a setback to the sidewalk, setback visibility, and allow you still to have front gardens.
But the issue is, there are some properties that can't afford to have it be 6 feet back because of the size of the front yard.
And I,
So that's part of the issue, isn't it? That was part of it.
and I thought there was a height restriction in there too.
there is.
The Bill's calling the law director right now.
If we pass it, we can.
He thinks it might take more than a majority to override planning commission.
Oh.
Okay.
Are you looking for the charter of the?
I have the charter.
Thinking if it
Here. Do what?
wait till somebody has a garden, that's.
See, the other thing too is that we've talked about maintenance issues before. Nothing to do with gardens. So maybe we need to.
So
Gardens.
John, the new ordinance calls for a 6-foot setback. In other words, if you have 30 feet front yard, you could grow on 24 feet of it. Is that correct?
The ordinance is a projection 6 feet, not more than 6 feet into the front yard setback. So that interpretation for projections in the front yard can either mean 6 feet from the front yard setback of, so if you're, let's say, for example, it's 30 feet front yard setback, that means you can only grow your garden 24 feet from the front yard property line.
Yeah, that's including flower beds and
Right.
bushes and
So that means-
ornamental shrubs and so forth, right? When you,
Well, it would just be any vegetable
So that's
garden,
pretty
so
far
anything
back.
that's grown for human
That's pretty far
consumption.
back.
yeah, to me, a garden's vegetables, it's not flowers, but,
Right.
That's not what we're talking about, though. If you put a mound off of your,
No.
it has to be a foot off your sidewalk. If you put a mound in of petunias, Ross, that doesn't violate the 6-foot
This says
setback.
vegetable garden
It just says
Yeah.
vegetable garden.
Human
Okay.
consumption.
Yeah. I think that's where you were going.
Includes fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a question then related to it. It's not so much about the garden part, it's about the fencing part. Currently, if you put up garden fencing 8, 10 foot tall, we don't have, I don't believe we have anything on our books that even require us to get a permit if it's to protect your garden. Currently on our, I don't, okay,
Yeah, I had to check with mine.
okay. And then how far are you allowed to put that fence to the, as close to the sidewalk?
Well, his is way back.
My-
I had to get a variance from the zoning commission or zoning department because you can't go further forward than the front of your house.
Okay, so that,
Because I'm operating a farm, they were willing to do it.
Okay, you don't have a house, so it's, you don't.
that's exactly where I'm going.
No, we put a fence up, and my fence is pretty high for my garden, but it had to be in line. I checked with the city, it has to be in line with, it can't go past the front of my house,
Okay.
it's in the side yard.
So John, Joe has an empty lot. Okay. What are the regulations there? Just the 6 feet from the sidewalk?
For a garden?
It's an
Yes.
empty lot that he's
Vegetable
gonna garden.
I have an empty lot too.
I mean, there's a lot of variables that I think a staff person would have to look into as far as like, that's primarily what the lot will be used for. So I would have to see if it's zoned to allow for a garden just in general, because it could be technically a primary use. So, I mean, that's really
Yes, and we
your
have
zoning
them currently in the
person's
city.
interpretation, but
We have currently in the city,
Right.
we have empty lots that are vegetable and fruit
yeah.
gardening.
So you have precedent, and so maybe there's a interpretation there that the zoning person can use to kind of do that. But if it is allowed, then it would be whatever that setback is minus 6 feet.
Setback of the neighbors' houses or something?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna go by anyway, because I'm not gonna do that to them, so.
Right.
Your definition in the code says a vegetable garden is defined as vegetables, fruits, and flowers generally for use or consumption by the occupants of the premises. And that was in response to a question whether fruit would qualify as a vegetable garden. So if fruit qualifies as a vegetable garden, then flowers do too. And you're really only wanting to limit them to within 6 feet of the house?
Are you planning on eating flowers?
No, that's the way this is defined.
But the flowers are intended to be consumed, if it's a flower that's intended to be
It says
consumed by.
use or consumption. Use could mean cut
Pick 'em
flowers
and
on
put 'em in a vase.
So why would we put that into the code?
That again would be an interpretation by city staff.
Yeah,
So.
is it necessary? I mean, a lot of gardeners.
This is the only issue we have with this. I'd say we pass it and then make a commitment to address it and make a final decision by the end of the year. If we need to amend it, we can amend it.
I agree. But I don't vote, so.
I agree to that too.
Well. A minute.
Mayor, are we waiting for a call or something that you're doing, or?
As long as nobody gets hurt.
The Planning Commission just recommended that we pass this.
It says you can pass the ordinance tonight and amend it by removing all references to front yard gardens, if you choose to. So we can make
Okay,
amendments.
so that's,
Thank you.
You always then go back and add it later. So
Because I'm like you, I would want to go back and add some stipulations.
Do we have to decide on that amendment tonight?
It says.
One way or the other, we have to.
Somebody could just make
Or
a
we
motion to
table.
pass ordinance as presented with the removal of all front yard garden reference. If you want to wait till later and discuss the front yard issue later, but pass the rest, someone could make a motion, pass the ordinance as presented with the removal of all front yard garden reference.
Can
Which
I
would
ask
what-
if you-
Which would what? Would make front yard gardens legal or illegal?
Legal,
It would make them.
If they're not in here, they're legal?
right,
If there's no prohibition against them, then they're legal.
yeah.
Right.
That's the way it is now.
And there's no control over,
which is in contradiction of the
what they're planning or anything.
over where it's planted or what's planted or how high it is or anything. No, I think we should leave it in, and then we can talk about it over the next few months.
But really, we're talking about a maintenance issue as opposed to being able to have something. We've got a maintenance issue now, and we were going to address that a year or so ago. I'm just saying, with the overgrown, and then we had a deluge of people come and say, you're not letting us have a front yard garden, and that wasn't what we were doing, and that got all messed up. And that was we were just dealing with a maintenance issue. And then we all were like hung out there because we weren't going to let anybody have front yard gardens. And that was not what we were talking about. So now we're back into this again in a way. And I get it. I think front yard gardens, I think we should be able to have front yard gardens.
Yeah, that's what it is.
But again, we're talking about maintenance issues too. And maintenance to me is separate than that, but that's just.
Like you said,
Go back and put in provisions for it.
But our maintenance issues doesn't specify, other than grass, on how high it can be.
Right, so.
Or setbacks.
Or setbacks.
Setbacks, right. It doesn't.
So there would be no control over any kind of maintenance.
So
from-
basically, we can either remove this totally and then go back and put it in with some guidelines.
Guidelines.
I'd feel better doing that than
Yeah.
passing it and
Yep.
Me too.
taking that out later.
So then all we would need to do at this point is to make a motion to approve it with taking out any language that references front yard gardens, and then at a later date, go back and put in provisions, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Did everybody understand that?
Yep,
I would-
who wants to make that motion? Nope,
Oh.
you say something?
Former bureaucrat, I would actually like to suggest that you make a more specific motion to delete the section that refers to vegetable gardens in front yards, and potentially delete the definition,
Yep.
because those are the two most discussed topics on this.
What is that section?
That is 155.094,
Would you say that again, please?
155.094, H.
So 155.094H.
And definition is far away from it.
Mark 2.
Boy.
One 2191 vegetable gardens, definitions V through W.
Yes. So vegetable gardens out of 191, correct?
What was the number again?
155.2191 definitions, :V-W, you would just be deleting vegetable gardens.
One, nine.
191.
And that's just to remove the title,
Definition.
No, just to remove the definition.
definition,
Okay.
into 094?
094H.
Yeah, what is that?
That's the section.
Okay.
The front yard garden is in.
Would somebody like to try to make a motion on that?
I will.
Okay.
But tell me again the section for the definition.
One, for the definition, 155.2191.
155. Say it again.
.2191.
Okay. Ready?
Okay.
I would like to make a motion to approve resolution number 211165 with the exception of, with taking out section 155.094H that references front yard gardens, and section number 155.2191 that has the definition of front yard gardens and/or any reference to front yard gardens.
I'll second that.
Okay, Ms. Dosa made a motion, which I'm not going to repeat. And Ms. Sheets has seconded.
Second. Mrs. Lingo?
Aye.
Mrs. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Question. Are we now approving this resolution?
Yes.
As amended.
Okay.
Amended with the,
As
Okay,
amended.
because I had other questions, but, okay, no.
Mrs. Dosa?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Sheets?
Yes.
Okay, by a vote of 6-1, resolution number 21-1165 is adopted with the amendments of the removal of the definition at 155.2191 and section 155.094H. Is approved.
Thank
Did I
you.
get that right?
Thank you very
I
much.
do have a legitimate input about trees. I used to run the tree program in Bellevue, Kentucky, and trees are very beneficial, especially street trees are very beneficial to carbon offset, heat island effect, and we did do the Arbor Day Tree City USA program for 8.5 years, and one of the key benefits is that anytime utility comes through to cut your street trees, they have got to use an ISA certified arborist trimming service. And they also meet with the city staff to make sure that they're making the right cuts. So I definitely recommend advancing a tree program in Mount Healthy.
Yes. John, I've been reading an article in Discover magazine. Louisville's got a multi-million-dollar program trying to
This is really
restore
good.
the trees along the highways and so forth.
Yep.
Because they're finding it's reducing cancer in the neighborhoods, so,
It's pretty amazing. There's plenty of benefits to trees and street trees, and
yes.
it's good stuff. So you guys are doing great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your contributions.
Thank you.
Okay. First reading of an ordinance. This ordinance, an ordinance assessing cost of the removal of high grass and weeds and declaring an emergency. The ordinance number is 21-1954.
Sure, I'm not on there.
21-1954.
There is, it needs to be a correction on the back, because when I totaled up the number, it came to $3,829.39 instead of $40,287.
Yeah,
I had a,
that was a big amount, wasn't it? Yeah, I saw that too.
couldn't believe that one.
I don't know, but it's
Sure doesn't add up,
Not
does it?
40,000.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, yes, it's true.
What was the total amount you had, Cindy?
$3,829.39.
Mayor, that total number isn't a accumulation of other parcels in the previous ordinances?
no, it was probably
I don't think so.
cut and paste how he does it, and that total was probably for another one.
Big one.
Okay, just asking. So then make the new total $3,829.39. And we'll trust on Cindy's math.
I did do it 3 times.
And this is the first reading?
It's an emergency.
Are we both?
Well, we usually pass this one so they can get it down to the...
Yeah, so get on the tax
Or
bill.
get it on the tax bill.
I didn't know if we were going to do that because of the change. Doesn't matter.
All right,
Come
No,
on.
I don't think
go
so.
ahead, just say it.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the 2 reading rule.
Ms. Lingo has made a
Second.
motion to suspend the 2 reading rule. Do I have a second?
Second.
Jenny said it.
I second.
Jenny, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
You're too slow.
Moving it along here.
Eh?
Second.
Ms. Moody is seconded.
Mrs. Lingo?
Aye.
Mrs. Moody?
Ms. Moody, aye.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa?
Aye.
Mr. George?
Aye.
Ms. Sheets?
Aye.
Okay, by a vote of 7-0, the 2 reading rule has been suspended.
I make a motion that we adopt ordinance 21-1954.
Second.
Mr. Parsons has made a motion to adopt, and Mr. George has seconded.
Mrs. Lingo?
Aye.
Mrs. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa?
Aye.
Mr. George?
Aye.
Ms. Sheets?
Aye.
Okay, by a vote of 7-0, ordinance 21-1954 is adopted. Then we have some ordinance, or resolutions. First reading of a resolution. A A resolution declaring it necessary to levy a tax in excess of the 10 mil limitations and declaring an emergency. Resolution number is 21-1167.
Mr. President, on mine it says ordinance instead of,
You look at the wrong thing.
You're looking at the wrong one. It's the next one we're going to do that has that down, not this
what's the
one.
next one in my order?
Oh, well,
I make
There
a
we go.
motion that we suspend the
Never
two
mind.
reading rule on ordinance, resolution 21-1167.
Mr. Parsons has made a motion to suspend the two reading rule.
I'll second it.
Mr. Redding, seconded.
Mrs. Lingo?
Aye.
Mrs. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa?
Aye.
Mr. George?
Aye.
Ms. Sheets?
Aye.
By a vote of 7-0, the two reading rule has been suspended. Any questions or comments?
What is the
Just-
difference between this and what we did last month?
Last month, we approved requesting the amounts from the auditor.
Oh, okay.
Getting certified amounts from the auditor, which are included in here.
Okay,
And this is to put the levy on the ballot.
thank you.
And it is a renewal.
Yeah, renewal. We're not asking for new money.
I make a motion to adopt resolution number 21-1167.
Mr.
Se-
Redding's
I'll
made a motion
second.
to adopt. Do I have a second? Mr. George?
Mrs. Lingo?
Aye.
Mrs. Moody?
aye.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa?
Aye.
Mr. George?
Aye.
Ms. Sheets?
Aye.
By a vote of 7-0, resolution number 21-1167 is approved.
One question, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, this has to be down 90 days before the election, so we really had to do it we had to do the.
Had to do it today or have a
Today.
special meeting.
Yep, or have a special meeting next week, or whenever, so.
Okay, so a little out of order, but this next one is an ordinance, but the title says resolution. So cross out resolution and write in ordinance in the bold
okay.
print.
Oh, this is the one where we've done that last.
Wait a minute.
No.
It's a resolution,
Is it a resolution or an
not
ordinance?
an ordinance.
Read the whole thing.
Then it,
What is it?
Well, I need to know which one we're using. I don't
yeah,
know this.
then it,
Everything says resolution except that line on the front page there.
Yep.
An ordinance goes into our laws. This is just
Right.
authorizing him to sign a contract.
Yeah. Okay. Then cross it out again and make it a resolution.
All righty.
And it's a different number then, isn't it?
we can use this number.
Sure?
Yeah, because I'll just transfer it as a resolution.
Okay. Resolution, the number then is 21-1955.
955?
955.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Transit Infrastructure Fund programs and to execute contracts as required and declaring an emergency.
Jamie, do you know when this has to be done?
I do not. I can ask.
While he's asking, does that go along with that other piece of paper that was in our packet about the City of Mount Healthy, the OPWC Round 35 funding recommendations? Does that, do these two go together? I was kind of lost.
No.
This is for me.
No, okay.
Nope.
Does that have a date?
The emergency eliminates the 30-day wait to become law, but it doesn't suspend the two reading rule.
Yeah, only.
So what is the projected cost on this? If it doesn't go along with that paper, I mean, on that paper, it talked about Compton Road, preliminary cost estimate, $1,163,000. I'm just kind of lost. So if you could find me someplace, I would appreciate it.
Well, this doesn't really have a cost that's set up. He can only sign a certain amount on the contracts, right? He's got a limit.
He does have a limit.
And this just allowing him to sign the contracts to participate in this program.
We do need to either waive the rules or have a special meeting.
Say that again?
We've got to
We need
waive
to
it.
waive the rule or have a special meeting.
Have another meeting, special meeting.
So this has a date that we got to get this in by before our next meeting?
By the end of the month.
Okay.
So,
We need to take care of it today.
So we can have a special meeting if
Week
you'd
and a half.
like.
I'll make a motion to waive the reading rule.
Second,
Oh, listen to him coming up. Okay. Mr. George has made a motion to suspend, and Jenny, was that you?
Yes.
Jenny has seconded the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Lingo?
Aye.
Mrs. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa?
Aye.
Mr. George?
Aye.
Ms. Sheets?
Can I abstain?
Yes.
I abstain.
By a vote of 6-0, the two reading rule has been suspended. Questions or comments, council? Wishes?
I'll make a motion.
Motion to it.
Oh,
Oh.
go ahead. Go.
So what
Ms.
work are we
Dosa?
doing, what work are we doing on Compton Road?
Well-
Make a motion to adopt.
Just maybe take
Yeah,
a minute and go through
sure.
this. So what this is, it must be some new funding, and all this is giving Bill is a resolution for the city manager to prepare and submit an application to participate in that infrastructure funding program. So we don't even know if we're going to get any money, okay? It's just to participate in the funding program.
What are you seeing in here? I don't see what you're seeing.
Well, I mean, I don't know what, I hadn't heard anything about Compton Road except it was on our list. And then there was, this piece of paper was in our packet, so I just made the
What piece of paper are you
assumption-
looking at?
She's looking at the
It says-
round 35 of the.
Oh, that has nothing to do with this.
Right, and that's,
Okay, so I mean, and the infrastructure bill from federally has not been, I know, signed. So I just don't know. I hate to vote on something I have no idea what I'm voting on.
okay,
That's good. That's fine.
that's fine.
And I couldn't explain it to anybody.
I don't know how to
so
explain it
this
to you.
is, let me find. Street, sorry. My desk is booked. I need to come up here. Since we shifted around.
I know.
You ain't got nothing else to do, Mayor?
Lord, I know. I need to come up here. No, so the Compton,
I think we get home by midnight.
yeah, Compton from Hamilton to the West Coast line, which is one of the funding recommendations that we had, the round 35?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's one of the future ones. So in order to, this just gives the city manager, authorizes the city manager to start applying for funds for that. So when we do these street reconstructions, we obviously don't pay for, I mean, we don't pay for it mostly ourselves. We can't afford it, so we apply for
Right.
grants to do it. So this is just authorizing the city manager to start that process and applying for some of those things. So when we get to Compton Road, we can pay for it
Okay,
with that.
that helps, thank you.
And it would be Compton from Hamilton west to the city limit.
Okay,
And I think, Jamie, what we're talking about is the Regional Transit Authority, which is Metro.
Yeah.
And we're probably talking about, one example, that would be like a concrete, where the bus stops, would make that concrete instead of blacktop.
Okay.
You know, that would
Yeah,
probably be
so-
similar to that.
Well, it's more than that.
Maybe.
So when the levy
Yeah, that's
passed-
just one part of it.
When the Metro levy passed, part of that levy was not only to increase Metro, like I gave the report, but also to improve infrastructure in the area. They put a street improvement aspect onto that levy, hoping it would pass that
that's
way.
true.
Whereas
Yes.
if it was just bus, less people would vote for it. That's just the politics of it. So now there's a fund set up where money's available, where cities on the bus routes can apply for infrastructure improvements. And this is for us to try to tap into that.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I get it.
wanted to make sure I knew everything before I said it.
Thank you. Okay. I can vote now.
Good question, Cindy. Yeah, great. Okay, any other questions? And I don't know, I'm going to ask this, not knowing, did anybody make a motion?
I did.
Okay, Ms. Dosa made a motion to approve 21-1955.
Second.
Mr. Redding has seconded. Roll call.
Mrs. Lingo?
Aye.
Mrs. Mooney?
Aye.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa?
Aye.
Mr. George?
Aye.
Ms. Sheets?
Aye.
Okay, by a vote of 7-0, resolution number 21-1955 is approved. Now, that is all of our legislation. Old business.
I guess I have one topic under old business. I've asked Bill to have the fire chief give us a monthly report, and I know for the last 2 months, we have not had one. And I think I, as a city council person, would like to know the monthly fire report and issues. And so whatever we need to do to get that to happen.
Yeah, we used to get them.
Yeah, we used to, yeah.
And, yeah, I know the chief prepared one, and we asked him to push it off a month a while back, and I'm wondering if we went too far. I will find that out. I don't think it's the chief's fault, though.
Well, the other thing is like,
I
you
can
know,
take the blame on that.
are they thinking, last month I brought up too, that the city has paid, the residents of the city have paid a lot of money for the fire department to be improved and our, you know, hiring of the 7 new ones. Are we planning anything so that people, you know, kids can touch a truck? Can they come up and see the new quarters? Can they meet firefighters? I know Bill had talked about that maybe next month they would be sworn in or something publicly, but I think this is a great way for like the Clover Avenue people to come and see what's going on in that, you know, we're people and we work hard too and to get that done. So I would like that.
I know National Night Out is early August. That might be a really good opportunity to do that.
That's
Could
police
you-
night.
Sorry?
That's a police night out.
They
Oh.
usually have the fire trucks there.
They're supposed to be here to swear them in September, I think.
Next
Yeah,
month,
they usually have
August.
fire trucks out
But
there.
you're right, that is
Do they
police.
have fire
park,
trucks down there?
Yeah,
too?
up at the park and that.
Heritage Park with flowers there.
Okay, any other old business? New business. I have one item I'd like to bring up. Cindy and I attended a meeting with the building department, Bill and Gordon, in regards to fee changes in the building program. There's a little group of papers, a little packet in your big packet. Front page is a list of different reasons and whys about it. We're not going to vote on it. Not really going to discuss it. I just want to go over it quickly so you can study it, and then we'll talk about it later. Second page is here. We've got the blue stripe on the side.
I saw that.
I saw that.
On the left-hand side, it gives you the reason for the permit, or what the permits were for, what Mount Healthy is currently charging, what Sharonville, a similar-sized community, charges, and Hamilton County charges in the third column. And the blue is what they're recommending Mount Healthy charge. We're still much lower. There's $1,606 for a planned unit development for Hamilton County, and they're recommending $400 to $600 for Mount Healthy. So they're trying to bring the fees up to code, or not to code, up to level to where they are covering their cost. They're not making money, we're not losing as much. And then the final pages are the general procedure and the the codes that are currently here, which are not really interested in changing. It's just listed for your benefit. And they're done away with a lot of tables and, help me, Cindy, here,
Well, it's supposed to be better, easier between
easier
the.
to read, yeah, there's
Right.
not,
Between permits and zoning and things like that.
yeah, some of it was in zoning, some of it was in building department, and they're getting it all eased over to the building department. But the biggest thing is, it's not jumping you around and giving you percentages that you got to increase it by, it's set fees. But anyway, peruse this, and at our next meeting, maybe we can, it's up to Bill, but discuss it.
Yeah, I looked at it. I don't see any problem with it.
No, you see our fees are still
Yeah.
pretty low
No,
compared to
I
most.
was looked at it too.
But they just want to cover cost.
Sure.
We're
No,
losing,
that's-
we're losing money from the
Yeah,
building
no,
department.
I
And
agree.
along with that, though, they talked about is, and I didn't see that any place in here, but that it was brought up at the meeting, is that if you pay these fees with a credit card, there's a transaction fee, which the city is picking up at this point. And so to include in the statement somehow that if you pay by a credit card, that transaction fee is part of the requester's expense.
Sure.
I don't know how that has to be worded, as opposed to the city picking that up.
Yes.
I mean, everybody does it that way anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah, everybody passes it on. Yeah.
but I don't see it in here. I could have missed it.
Well, you don't have an ordinance written up yet either, so.
Right, so,
That's something to make sure.
Okay, any other new business, council?
yes. So we've decided about Juneteenth Day and Pride Month. You're going to talk to We Thrive people, and
And Juneteenth is a federal holiday, so we are going to celebrate Juneteenth.
but we won't
recognize
do a
that.
proclamation.
Won't do a proclamation for Pride, yeah.
Okay, the fee schedule. I would like to request that there be some subcommittee set up for onboarding of council people. I struggle as a new person, and I really try to read and find things out, but I get very frustrated. And I'm happy to be on that committee, but I think a senior member of council would need to be on that too, to make some kind of a checklist or explanation or, something so that you have an idea. I mean, I've read the charter, I've taken those classes, but I'm still totally lost and aggravated most of the time because I don't know the process. So I am very willing to start working on that. And, but like I said, I think a senior member of council should be part of that.
What is it you're trying to do again, Cindy?
To onboard, we're going to have an election, we're going to have at least one new person come on, and I think to be able to, it took me 6 weeks to get an email address. I don't see that as acceptable, behavior. And then there's things, Bill was talking to me this week that I'm not allowed to talk to directors. And, I know I can't give them directions, but I thought I could ask them questions, and I've been told I can't do that. And so give me some guidelines on how to be a council person here in Mount Healthy.
I don't know what you're talking about, not being able to talk to directors. Like, who aren't you allowed to talk to?
It's questions supposed to be addressed to the city manager and then
Oh,
to
sure.
to the managers, to
Yeah,
the
you can
department
talk,
managers.
yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, but you can talk with the directors. You just talk to Bill and say, hey,
Yeah.
look, can I?
Yeah,
I'm
you're just
gonna-
not supposed to go directly to the chief.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
You don't know that. I knew I was not to give anybody direction.
Right.
But I certainly thought I could ask a question. And
One of the things I struggled with when I was new is all of the, terms thrown out, skip funding, this, that.
Right.
Yeah, you have no idea.
It's
so-
not something you learn in 6 weeks or
That's
3,
right.
4 months. It's a 2-year process.
Longer than that.
I totally get that, but I don't know why we excuse, what's the process for excusing people, when they're absent? And, who do you call if you're not going to be here so people know? You go to a new job, there is onboarding.
Sure.
It certainly doesn't cover everything that you're going to do. And you all are very senior members on council, so it's very routine to you. It's not to me, and I'm not afraid to tell you it's not, and it's very
Yeah, that's the
frustrating.
Alzheimer group over there.
The basic duties are in the charter, the city charter.
Not all of them, not all.
Well, not all of them, but I mean, the basic things that we are
You're talking more
are
procedures
required to
and
do.
processes.
Yeah, you're talking procedures, yeah.
Procedures and process.
When you become a member of council, yes, you should, somebody in the office should get you on the payroll, and somebody should get you an email. You're right, a city email.
You know, and so, I mean, I like policies and procedures. I was the queen of that at my job when I was working. So I'm happy to come up with, and I'm not even looking at writing a policy book or an SOP, a checklist. You know, okay, you can, I don't know everybody that's working here. I don't know all the committees, and I know that's in the charter, and I've looked at that, but I don't know who's on the committees. And, you know, it's just, how can I be an effective council person when I'm working in a well instead of a place of knowledge and information?
Understand.
And I'm willing to help work on that.
I think that's a conversation you need to have with Bill.
I have, and he's agreed that it needs to be done.
See, and that's a start.
So,
Okay.
but he said he doesn't do anything with council. That's not his job. He's the executive, and we're council.
And that's true.
That is true.
So,
This, he doesn't have to come, the mayor doesn't have to come to these meetings. He comes because he's invited, but it's a council meeting, not the mayor's meeting. So, you know.
That's why Leroy moved me over here, moved you over here, right?
I was wondering what you're going to say.
Yeah, that other setup was not.
Yeah, the mayor set up here,
Yeah.
right in the center of the.
Some of it is traditions also of what has traditionally been done too, as opposed to.
There is something to be said, though. I know
Yeah.
at the school,
Right.
when you run an extracurricular, you
Yeah.
have a supplemental, we have like a handbook of everything that person does. So when I ran student government, here's everything you needed for homecoming. Here's the, you know, the florist that typically they used, or here's what you had to buy from a florist. You
Well-
could use whatever. Here's this. Here's you had to do this for the pep rally, this for homecoming parade, this for this. And then when you left, the next person got it. So they knew what their expectations were.
Same with new teachers. You had
Yeah.
new teacher orientation. So you went over, you met everybody, you took a tour, you found out different things. Yeah.
I think it's helpful.
Kind of got to hit the ground running.
Ask a lot of questions is what I did. I asked a lot of questions. And I commend you for,
Probably what would be, Cindy, probably that you, since you are struggling with a lot of this, when you create, when something is like this is created, it's good with your perspective, because some of the things we've done for so long, we might not foresee that somebody would need to know. We take for granted for that. You know the things that you needed to know that nobody told you. So as you write that down, whether you do a journal type thing or a list to say, this is the things I've struggled with, that's a big, great start as to, okay, these are the things that we need to address and write down for somebody coming in. And there's no reason why we can't review it. The whole committee thing, we used to have structure years ago where every January we went over committees and who was going to be on committees and what committees we needed. And we haven't done that for a long time. And that was one of the struggles when I decided I wanted, it was my last year on council and I wanted to do something different on a committee. But we used to, years ago, we used to have that structured out and go through that every year.
We used to have to sign a book, see who was present, and the reason we
well,
were all.
I'm not trying to make it more complicated. I'm just trying to make it better for me, and I figure the
Sure.
person
Oh, it's not
behind me.
I mean, you need to know.
So, that's all I have. Oh, the fireworks, the silent fireworks, I thought that was a good article.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not as concerned about pets, although I do think of them, but I know children with disabilities have a lot of trouble with that, quite a few of them. And the people with PTSD, that's, and I'm not saying we should do it, but it was pretty interesting to me.
Well, there was a person not too far away from my house. The fireworks I heard were just unbelievable, and I asked a neighbor closer by, and he said he had commercial fireworks. It was kind of scary, to be honest with you, because what I heard was, whoa, pretty significant and big, and the yard was pretty small. And my one neighbor, a couple streets over, said, oh yeah, that guy had commercial fireworks. That bothers me. When somebody has fireworks in their small yard that is not, that a company should handle, you know? That's why the guy got killed down here on Adams Road, so it's a struggle, I'll tell you.
Is there any other new business, council?
We need to decide if council wants to send the civil service rules to committee or take it up as a council next month for a first reading. Doesn't matter to Bill or I.
I read over it.
What was that?
I read over it. I liked a lot of the changes.
Yeah.
They did make it gender neutral. I like that. And some of the other changes I thought were pretty, and I didn't see them as huge things. And so I don't know that a committee is needed from my point of view.
I looked it over too, because we talked about the things. I didn't see, but then maybe I don't know enough to ask the question for civil service, but it looked fine to me.
We can come back with our questions at the next meeting.
At the next
Yeah,
meeting.
first reading. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Anything else, council? Going once, going twice?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Ms. Lingo has made a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Parsons has seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No, aye. Aye. There you go. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.